Part 45. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 443. Regarding the powerful mutation of the big mosquito this time, Daphne, who already considers herself an Earthling, has eyes full of expectations. And it was at the moment when Daphne became more aware of herself as an Earthling and became more aware of her identity. Click, click, click. The huge building made of metal has more and more cracks, becoming more and more dense. Finally, there was a loud bang, and the building seemed to explode in pieces and completely collapsed. Hold head high. Dash. A long, sharp cry with inexplicable meaning came out from the damaged building. At the same time, an indescribably huge monster, like a rocket whose figure could not be seen clearly, soared into the sky with a scream. The huge monster could not be seen clearly at this time. The only thing that was clear was that its body was so huge that it was completely unbelievable. You must know that in this gray-yellow star, the largest flying monster is the mount of the white life form before, which is the most powerful individual of the biochemical empire on this planet that can fight in the sky. But that individual's IQ is not high, and even flying individuals with higher IQ are rare in the entire biochemical empire. But now this huge flying monster is almost impossible to see clearly. Its body is so huge that it is almost as big as the flying monster that the diplomats and their entourage were riding on. Most of the life forms present did not see the true form of the monster, but as a relatively strong woman, Daphne could barely see the opponent's figure. This monster is completely black and has an incredible streamlined beauty. Just by looking at it, Daphne was deeply shocked by its mechanical body. As a combat life form, whether a monster is really powerful or not can be determined by just looking at the opponent's figure. And this clue is most clearly reflected in the evolved beast. The moment the big mosquito appeared in front of her, she understood that its power this time was beyond her imagination. The flying monster flying in the sky flew higher and higher, and gradually lost its trace in the eyes of everyone. Jia Yan indeed had a desire that soared into the sky in the pleasure of completing the mutation. On this planet, he has always felt depressed. After all, as an alien life form and an evolved beast, he has always been cautious, but he has never experienced such a depressed period on Earth before. Even in the age of a small mosquito, he grew rapidly and immediately became an extremely powerful giant mosquito monster. But after arriving on this gray-yellow star, let's see what he went through, right? After being chased, he was forced to become a so-called battle pet, and had to fight with those monsters who were not very intelligent. Afterwards, the white life forms that were being chased were defeated and fled. That's all humiliation. At this time, Jia Yan was half feeling the natural joy after the mutation was completed, and the feeling that after being suppressed for a long time, his heart wanted to explode, so there was a direct release of energy. He didn't know how strong he was, but his body felt really good. This feeling is indescribable. Too strong, too strong. There is no mistake in my self-debugging. How powerful is it? I don't even know. Ha ha ha. Jia Yan rushed towards the sky. As he traveled, he examined his body. At this time, after further mutation, as expected, the length of his body from head to tail reached about 30 meters. Compared with the previous length of less than 20 meters, it had grown by more than 10 meters again. You must know that these more than 10 meters are huge in terms of size. It's a different situation again. The white life form that used to be about the same size as him is now a tiny little thing near his body. It can even ride on his body without looking out of place. Of course, it was impossible for Jia Yan to let her ride. The surging energy in the body is also constantly agitating. That kind of muscle tension and relaxation, a surge of powerful force, makes it feel like a knife-shaped horny thrust from the front foot can destroy a hill. Jia Yan's efforts were not in vain. At this time, he had the kind of reward that he had when he adjusted his body. Incomparably powerful, he couldn't imagine that if he fought against his previous opponents again, they would still be his enemies. Even the most powerful white life form among all the enemies I have experienced may not be my one-in-one enemy, right? He had no other comparison, only the most powerful diplomat among his opponents, as a comparison. But thinking of her, the child words she said 2 days ago quickly lingered in Jia Yan's heart. Jia Yan sighed immediately and recalled his thoughts from that moment. Some weird white life forms moved there. Suddenly, he focused his gaze on the gray-yellow clouds above his head. Defuni told me before that powerful life forms have obvious hierarchical divisions in interstellar civilization. After this mutation, I also had a feeling of a realm breakthrough. I don't know if I have reached that so-called starry sky level. In the strong system brought by the biochemical empire, there are 4 levels. The first level is the Earth level, the second is the sky level, the third is the starry sky level, and the fourth is in the nearby star field. The star level that did not appear. According to Defuni's later explanation, reaching the starry sky level is an absolutely powerful life form. In all interstellar civilizations, this is the top powerhouse. Although there are strong and weak among the starry sky level, the powerful ones can even easily fighting against a large group of starry sky levels of the same level, but no matter what, the starry sky level is the most powerful existence in this star field. This cannot be denied. The most remarkable feature of the starry sky level is that no matter which method is used to reach this level, the body will naturally form an ability to survive in the starry sky and fight for a long time. Jia Yan looked at the sky with a bright luster in his compound eyes. The simplest solution to test whether you are a strong star in the sky is: look into the vacuum of space. The big mosquito made a U-turn, and at the same time, it exerted force on its body and suddenly flew high into the sky above its head. His speed is unknown. If we insist on using the speed on Earth to describe it, then it is more than 20 times the speed of sound. This mutation may really be Jia Yan's biggest enhancement in history. His confidence in himself was unprecedented. His speed, even when flying upward, was more than 20 times the speed of sound. The joy of moving 10 miles and hundreds of miles at a time made him think that he was the Sun Wukong who could fly hundreds of miles in a single somersault. It was really extremely satisfying. This kind of power was unbelievable even for Jia Yan before. I must be starry sky level now, definitely. He is extremely sure of himself. As a somewhat conceited being, after understanding that there were 2 starry sky levels on this planet, he couldn't tolerate it. There are actually 2 more powerful beings so close to him. As a terrifying giant mosquito, the thought that Jia Yan has always been invincible has penetrated deeply into his heart. If he mutates again, but still has to be crushed by 2 powerful beings on this planet, he will definitely not be able to let it go. So he firmly believed that he would reach the level of those 2 beings. Even the starry sky level is the most powerful existence in this star field. Although each individual is very different, Jia Yan believes that if he is at the same level, he will at least not be afraid of any so-called alien powerhouse. Boom 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 boom. The huge monster, which reached 30 meters, soared into the sky. He is so arrogant, and it seems that nothing can stop his actions. The area and sky where he is located are the absolute king, and nothing around him can reject his existence. I can't resist the presence of this king. The living beings such as Defuni below were all looking up at the sky with their mouths open. Because of the distance, the body of this monster also became a clue in the eyes of all the living beings. Miss Daphne. Is this the assassin? Panting Ulus, Kankan arrived at this time because he heard the news of the building's collapse. Daphne glanced at him, and gradually calmed down her shock in her heart. Finally, a smile bloomed at the corner of her mouth. She looked at Ulus with a smile she had never shown before. Yes. He is the assassin, the big mosquito. Defuni's smile was almost unbearable. It seemed that the power of Big Mosquito was already the greatest guarantee in her opinion. Even though there were so many quarrels and gaps between her and Big Mosquito before, at this time, she didn't care anymore. Seeing such a powerful companion gave her a firm and stable grasp of what she was going to do next. Alois was also shocked. Both he and Daphne had guessed that the tentacle monster was actually the life form of the giant mosquito. He had also had an idea before, that is, the assassin was actually the life form of the mosquito. A powerful and mysterious evolved beast. But now he saw that the big mosquito had suddenly grown bigger after being in seclusion for a period of time. The fact was really before his eyes, and he was no longer calm. That's an evolved beast. And this master assassin seems to be really powerful. He stared blankly at the huge flying monster that quickly flew upwards in the sky. It could be said that it turned into a small dot in the blink of an eye, flew to an unknown height and disappeared from the horizon. Suddenly, he trembled, as if he thought of something. Is the assassin flying into the universe? No, Miss Delphine, find a way to call the assassin down. Quick. The big frog seemed to be shaking, almost trembling all over. He had never thought that the evolved assassin would actually rush into the universe. Otherwise, he would have screamed when he was at close range. His expression made Daphne also startled, and then she said strangely, "It's impossible, the assassin didn't carry a communicator, and you also know that even if he did carry a communicator, long-distance communication is impossible on this planet. Right? What's going on? Is there anything wrong with flying high in the sky? On this planet, due to interference from both warring parties and even from many parties, communication at close range cannot be guaranteed, let alone long distance. Even the military has no way to do this." With a thrust, Jia Yan's body swayed several kilometers. In a few seconds, the distance was far beyond the best communication distance of the convoy, not to mention that Jia Yan did not carry a communicator at all. The big frog of Alus kept jumping up and down, extremely anxious. "It's not just inappropriate, it's totally inappropriate. Didn't you and Lord Assassin see it when you came to this planet? Outside of this planet, there are the interstellar battleships and headquarters of various countries. Lord Assassin, if you really go outside the atmosphere, you will be discovered by them in an instant. How dangerous it is." Daphne was stunned. She and Jia Yan did not come to this planet through ordinary methods. They did not know much about the situation on this planet before. In addition to knowing some things on the ground, they had no idea about the competition between various interstellar civilization forces outside the atmosphere. Not much understanding. Now that I hear Alus's words, could it be that the outside world of this warring planet is not a safe situation at all, but is also full of competition and competition among forces? Alus looked sad, and he could see that even though Daphne and the assassin were not stupid, they did not have a deep understanding of some things on this planet, both covertly and overtly. So at this time, with a sad face, he told the news he knew. After hearing this, Daphne was also shocked. Then she looked at the sky above where there were no traces of the big mosquitoes, and her eyes became serious. Boom 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 boom. Jia Yan soars in the sky. It seems that the atmosphere of this gray-yellow star is much wider than the atmosphere of the Earth. Even after it is tens of kilometers away, there is still air. Jia Yan looked at his wings. Although the flapping of his wings had no effect due to the thin air at this time, Jia Yan was already flapping his wings. At the same time, experienced the thinness of the surrounding air. He found that his strength was really much stronger. It was definitely more difficult to escape from this gray-yellow star that was bigger than the Earth. But he found that as soon as he soared into the sky, he became without too many relays and arc-shaped flights. You can use extremely high speeds and endless follow-up force to break through the constraints of gravity in a straight line. At this time, he had activated his brainwave power, and most of the flight pressure had been borne by his brainwave power. However, Jia Yan discovered that in the outer layer of the gray-yellow star's atmosphere, where the gravity was getting lower and lower, his feeling of using brainwave power to fly was no longer so consuming. Not only did the power of brainwaves become several times stronger, Jia Yan also knew that it was his understanding of the power of brainwaves and those studies that had yielded the fruits he needed during this period. If we say that the original Jia Yan was just a baby learning to talk about brainwave power, now, although he is still not a powerful brainwave power expert, his mastery of brainwave power has long gone beyond just entering the room level. What's more, Jia Yan's total brainwave power seems to far exceed that of ordinary brainwave power holders. After this mutation, he is confident that even that white life form can't achieve anything in terms of total brainwave power better than myself. With such huge brainwave power, coupled with a little bit of brainwave power control ability, so he can now control his own flight. It is no longer the kind of flying in the universe and stars in the solar system, bumping and bumping. Looks like. Very good, at least until now. I have not discovered the effect of vacuum on me, and the effect of temperature on me. Jia Yan knew that if he were on Earth, he would finally have arrived in the atmosphere relative to the outer layer of the Earth. He had experienced extremely low temperatures at this time, and his body did not suffer much discomfort. In his heart, he has greater confidence in his current body. If you go into the vacuum of the universe for an hour or two, you can find out whether I have the ability to survive in the universe for a period of time. Jia Yan doesn't know whether the so-called starry sky level can completely survive in the universe, or whether it is judged by a survival time. If he only survived for a period of time, then Jia Yan had already experienced the experience of being able to survive before undergoing this mutation, or even earlier, so he thought that maybe the judgment was not that simple. Maybe a powerful starry sky level, a living body must be able to survive in the universe to be considered a starry sky level, right? Otherwise, how could it be worthy of the name starry sky level? Just when Jia Yan was thinking, in front of his body, which was swimming forward at great speed, a huge silver-white figure suddenly appeared. This figure is all silvery white and seems to be made entirely of metal. The technological sense that is extremely in line with aesthetics is dazzling. It can be said to be a very outstanding design. But what's even more awe-inspiring is its size. This huge man-made machine actually has a body of more than 500 meters. In the dark and deep starry sky of the universe, this is an out-and-out behemoth. Even compared to today's giant mosquitoes with a body length of 30 meters, it is an unbelievably huge one. Monster. At this time, the huge aircraft soared quickly in the direction of Jia Yan. Not long after, Jia Yan was startled and discovered the body of this huge monster. He was stunned. After that, I just felt an incredible sense of crisis, locking myself in. This is the sense of crisis that naturally arises when a living body reaches a certain level. It is not that magical to say, it is just a natural feeling that arises from the living body through changes in the surrounding environment. Of course, for powerful living beings, this sense is an indispensable life-saving ability. Thank you, book friends. If you find errors in chapter content, please report it and we will fix it as soon as possible. For more exciting content, please pay attention to Novel Network's new domain name. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 444. Yesterday, some book friends urged me to update 6,000 words, so today I will update 6,000 words. I will update 1,000 more words as a thank you for everyone's rewards and genuine subscriptions. Thank you. Jia Yan is so powerful that he has a power that is like predicting. At this moment, he felt that the powerful battleship coming towards him was emitting a sense of threat that could threaten his life. Not good. A hint of horror appeared in the big mosquito's compound eyes. Under his attention, the distant flying battleship was like an unbelievably powerful monster. It had locked onto Jia Yan's location early, and the huge muzzle that had just begun to appear was aimed at him. This is an Asturian battleship. At this time, the commanders inside the huge battleship also had a look of astonishment. After all, as a member of the Asta Army's war machine, this battleship was also an extremely important part of the war. They have extremely complete information about the gray-yellow star below, but they have never heard of such a powerful monster in the gray-yellow star. Stop searching. Since there is no past information, in accordance with Article 79 of the Wartime Articles, we have the right to kill it. Turn the main gun around and take optical aim. Optical aiming completed. Spinners make tweaks. Fine-tuning synchronization is on. 10 seconds countdown to main gun firing, time begins. The countdown begins, 10, 9, 8, 7. The feeling of shock in Jia Yan's heart is getting stronger and stronger. He wanted to cry but had no tears. This was because he had taken it too lightly. You must know that this is a planet controlled by those powerful alien civilizations, and it is also a war planet. Isn't it normal to have star battleships outside the atmosphere? The moment Jia Yan felt the crisis coming over there, I saw a powerful light suddenly shooting out from the huge battleship. At the same time, his body felt threatened. It also suddenly reached its peak. Deep in the distant sky, a sudden light appeared, as if piercing the dark starry sky. Jia Yan discovered that the opponent was more than 20 kilometers away from him, but their attack reached him in the blink of an eye. Quick. Extremely fast. Except for the Asta disc laser attack that they had suffered once before. Faster than any other attack he had suffered before. Although this attack is not at the speed of light. But it's definitely not slow, and compared to the disc's attack, it's definitely many times more powerful. Jia Yan seemed to be able to feel that the huge red light contained extremely terrifying energy. This is a taste of attack that Jia Yan has never tried before. Almost at the moment when he couldn't react, the attack was already in front of him. Jia Yan seemed to have recovered from the shock at this time and wanted to dodge, but it was already too late. Puff. He could almost hear his own body. I had the illusion that something foreign object had entered my body. This red light has a similar taste to the red light from the Asta people I suffered before. But the difference in power is huge. It was 20 meters thick, and its red color was extremely bright, as if it could compare to the rays of the sun. For a moment, Jia Yan had never suffered such an attack. So he didn't react in time before, but he was actually attacked by the other party. At this time, he was in an extreme crisis. Blue defense, give it to me, Jia Yan was extremely horrified. Fortunately, the instinct to fight against the enemy was still there. At this time, Jia Yan quickly launched his biggest method of mutation from the bottom of his heart. It is also Jia Yan who has been mutating and becoming stronger. The most powerful thing, Azure Defense. He had never thought that the other party would launch an attack from such a far away place, so even though he had already felt a sense of crisis in his heart, for him, he was still careless and unprepared at that time. At this time, the attack came instantly, and he had no choice but to attack. Only the most convincing defense force can be mobilized. Blue defense. That's right. If you were to ask Jia Yan what the most powerful improvement he has made during this mutation besides self-adjustment, he would definitely say that it is his blue defense. In the past, Azure Defense would only appear passively when he was in a critical moment, and the deployment of Azure Defense was often inferior to those quick attacks, causing him to be damaged several times. But when it came to this mutation, because he had a self-adjustment plan, Jia Yan spent a lot of energy to quickly deploy this blue energy to the surface of the exoskeleton, and for blue defense, because it has been used, so he can be said to have figured out its mobilization method this time. When danger approached, he actually used his own mobilization mode in an instant to activate the Azure method. In a 10,000th of a second, a bright blue light appeared on Jia Yan's body. This kind of blue is not just a small area, but appears all over the body. This time the blue defense was mobilized obediently and responded so quickly, which represented the real first time that Jia Yan was finally completely conquered. His defensive power has reached a new level. Countless calculations and wartime mapping are also going on in the distant battleships. The 5th level energy main gun shines, hitting the target. An unknown energy reaction occurred in the target. The optical mapping response is still continuing, and there is no major damage to the target. Observers are reporting data urgently. What? How is that possible? In the command cabin, the tall man sitting in the high seat felt a touch of horror. There was a hint of shock in his expression, and then he clicked on the imaging optical screen in front of him. The scenery ahead in distant space is quickly zoomed in. The red light shot past, and a huge monster was severely hit by the red light. However, although the fierce red light enveloped the monster completely, it did not directly annihilate it into cosmic dust as expected. Under the attack of huge energy, its body fell hard towards the gray-yellow star. Flames shot out from the surface of its body, and there was even a strange blue color in the flames. Emerge. Although it looks extremely terrifying, judging from the surveying and mapping data, the opponent's life indicators have not suffered much loss. It can be said that he is still alive and kicking. What kind of monster is this? It can resist the attack of our Yudong class main gun, and it is definitely not inferior to the Starry Sky class existence. No, even most Starry Sky class existences cannot face our main gun intact. The defense of this monster is stronger than that of ordinary Starry Sky levels. Go and investigate its identity. And immediately notify the Gray-Yellow Star Command Headquarters. The battleship commander, after seeing that the flying monster was attacked by the main gun without much damage, he immediately gave orders to go down. At the same time, he looked at the falling behemoth, and wanted to give the order to pursue it at this time, but the opponent was already outside the atmosphere of the Grey Huang star. If he continued to pursue it, it would be a violation of the regulations of engagement and would cause tension in the already tense international relations of the Grey Huang star. So he had no choice but to order the battleship to stop. And retreated towards the rear. Because they are so close to the Grey Star, even if it is to deal with a monster that suddenly appears, there must be many interstellar civilization forces focusing their hostile eyes on them at this time. Jia Yan rode the extremely fast wind and landed below the planet. There was extremely intense pain all over his body. At this time, Jia Yan's body still had flames, bright red, almost covering his entire field of vision. But the luster in his compound eyes was still extremely bright. Azure defense has always been his absolute ultimate defense method, but Jia Yan has always suffered from being unable to make it completely obey his command. This space flight to test his strength encountered a space battleship that had only been seen in the Gray and Yellow Star media. Although this was an unexpected situation, for Jia Yan. But it was also a moment to test the blue defense. Moments like this directly made him have a great understanding of his blue defense. Although there has always been a huge recognition of the blue defense, due to its various drawbacks, every time the blue defense is activated, it is a matter of luck. But this time Zanlin's defense was successful, it was luck. This is also expected. After all, during the process of mutation, he spent a huge amount of effort to make a more reasonable change for Azure defense. But everything was as he expected. Good. Even the main gun of a battleship about 500 meters away can be defended. The performance of Zanlin's defense is amazing to me. Jia Yan had roughly understood before that these civilized warships, which are 500 meters long, are already the main battleships in space warfare. No matter how powerful they are only 1,000 meters long space aircraft carriers. Although it is nothing to defend against an attack, many Starry Sky level can defend it, but Jia Yan looked at himself at this time, and he knew that although he looked horribly scarred, his whole body was on fire, and he looked extremely miserable. But there are almost no real injuries. The power of Azure defense is all round. Jia Yan knew that he had finally reached a state of normal defense from being occasionally strong in defense. As long as he has blue defense, as long as he has substances that provide defensive energy, his defense may be his true invincible advantage today. And whether I was hit before, was it because I was not prepared? Where have I ever encountered an enemy that would launch a precise attack from 20 kilometers away? So the next time I encounter it, I must have a way to avoid it. Here, Jia Yan's heart is at peace. This time, he wanted to fly in the starry sky to test whether he had reached the starry sky level. Now, although the original idea of the test has not been completed, he still has an answer. Since even the main gun of a 500-meter class space battleship can be defended, there is no need to test other things. Even if you just look at the defense, he is truly starry sky level. As Jia Yan fell, the red flames around him gradually faded away. The smile in his heart slowly expanded, and then, raging laughter suddenly appeared in the surrounding air. Ha 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 ha. This may be the first time that Jia Yan has laughed so exaggeratedly after being reborn for so long, as if everything has been relieved, and his heart is smooth and extremely comfortable. That's right, he finally felt like a strong man regarding his own strength, as before. Even though he has almost invincible strength on Earth, the existence of aliens and alien civilizations is like a guillotine hanging above his head, which could fall down at any time and destroy him. Possible. So in the past, even if he had strength. But I still live in a state of fear all the time. But now, it is really for aliens to face a ship. It is also an extremely powerful technological warship. He felt that he had the strength to confront it head-on, and the fear that had been hidden in his heart was suddenly released. He even understands that every time he successfully mutates, he is not yet in a truly powerful state, because there is a process of continuing to absorb the mutation energy. After a while, he will even make great progress. So he laughs. Laughing loudly and wildly. Ha 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 ha. The falling figure had already reached the clouds of the gray-yellow star. Because of the earth-shattering laughter, all the surrounding clouds collapsed. The sky seems to have undergone earth-shaking changes because of this relieved mosquito. But when it was less than 2 kilometers close to the ground, the laughter suddenly stopped. The big mosquito's body quickly flew downwards. The excitement in his heart immediately stopped. As a powerful life form, he has the ambition in his heart at this time. In other words, the desire for power, not only did not disappear after this unprecedented powerful mutation, but it grew crazily after knowing his true strength. His goal has become clearer. Now it's the starry sky level. But according to De Funi, there are many starry sky level powerhouses, and the differences in power among them are also huge. Jia Yan's goal is not even starry sky level at all. At this point, as a biological beast, his goal is. If he is not at the starry sky beast, that is, at the star level, how can he be worthy of the adventure of his rebirth? So he finally relaxed his mentality. After all, compared with the powerful starry sky beast, he still has a long way to go. Boom boom boom. The sound waves in the sky continued to spread, and Jia Yan rushed downwards. The location of the Earth convoy is already in sight. Jia Yan looked at the vast buildings in Huangzhou, as well as the streets and roads with many shadows of buildings constantly appearing, and felt a little emotional in his heart. This girl, Dai Funi, is really much stronger than him in this kind of thing. Many. Although I don't want to admit it, compared to when I was managing this fleet, the Earth's fleet at this time is countless times more prosperous. Lord Assassin. In the desert below, Allos and Daphne, who were still standing in place, immediately noticed the appearance of this behemoth. When Jia Yan's arrogant figure appeared in front of them, both of them gasped. The big mosquito before was just a powerful monster that had not reached 20 meters. Although he is powerful, what is known is that his power is by no means the highest on this planet. But the figure that landed now, even though the appearance is very similar, his body is even larger, reaching 30 meters. And you can faintly feel that the taste contained in it is definitely more in line with the aesthetics of the strong. From these points alone, you can know that the big mosquito at this time is by no means as simple as getting bigger. It may be in terms of combat strength. There has been an earth-shaking change. Allos swallowed hard, and then thought of a possibility, that is, this assassin has been able to match or even defeat the fifth strongest man in the Golden Desert before, and it is even possible that in this vast Golden Desert, they are all among the top 3 powerful beings, but now, could it be possible to hit the number 1 position? He couldn't believe it. But fortunately, this Lord Assassin obviously does not have the ability to fly into the universe. He must have descended because he did not have the ability to fly up. Otherwise, why was he not attacked by the civilized warships outside the atmosphere? Woolen cloth? He saw that there was not much damage on the surface of the mosquito's body. The blue substance was also hidden inside the exoskeleton at this time, so he thought that the other party had not been attacked at this time. If he knew that the assassin in front of him not only had the ability to fly outside the planet's atmosphere, but could even fight against a 500-meter Osta space battleship, he didn't know what his expression would be like. "Oh Lux, please leave. I'll talk to Daphne about something." Jia Yan dropped his huge figure. Next to his 30-meter body, Daphne, who was about 1.9 meters, and Allos, who was about 1.5 meters, looked like ants, extremely small. This, is, Allos's expression changed, and then he looked helplessly at Daphne, whose expression had not changed. Then he responded with disappointment. Compared to Daphne, he knew that he was incomparable. Even the relationship with Master Assassin may be much closer to Daphne. Allos had no idea how close Daphne and Jia Yan were. If he had known, his mouth would have been so shocked that he would have stuffed a fist into it. Allos walked away disappointedly, and the big frog was obviously a little disappointed. Not to mention the departure of this guy, just talk about the 2 guys, one big and one small, standing on the ground. Every living thing in the surrounding area left wisely because Master Assassin wanted to talk to Master Daphne. A large desert area. Only the huge 30-meter giant mosquito was left, and Daphne, who was proud of her figure and looked up at the giant mosquito. This is the first time Jia Yan has faced Daphne directly after his previous battle with the white life form. The previous conversations and work together were all things that had to be done because of the battle. And they didn't actually meet. At this time, it was like seeing each other after a long time, and both of them had a touch of uncertainty in their hearts. What Daphne was thinking about was whether the other party would kill her. And Jia Yan was thinking about it. Is this woman who tells herself that she sincerely surrenders really sincerely helping her? For a moment, Jia Yan didn't speak. On the other hand, Daphne looked at Jia Yan's body and finally discovered that there was a blue defense that had not faded on part of his exoskeleton. So he asked a strange question. What just happened? Jia Yan lowered his head and looked at his own body before smiling sarcastically. It's nothing, he was just shot down by a battleship. Shot down by a battleship. Daphne's beautiful eyes suddenly widened. So, the big mosquito has really flown into the sky just now. And even under a cannon attack from the space battleship, he returned without any damage. What else can you say about being shot down by a battleship? That's all. When an ordinary person is hit by a space battleship, it's not just one shot, but there are no scum left. Her look of astonishment. After being stunned for a long while, he relaxed a little. After all, she had already speculated before that whether the mosquito's mutation this time could reach the starry sky level. It would not be unusual if it could resist the attack of a space battleship, even a small battleship. After all, she knew that even the big mosquitoes on the Earth before were able to defend against the huge red light of the metal building. At that time, he was already able to defend himself against attacks from small warships. So after being stunned for a moment, Daphne also accepted more of her thoughts. It's a good thing that giant mosquitoes can become more powerful. For a woman like her who had lost her dream and just wanted to return to the land where she was born and raised, she really didn't have much hostility towards this evolved beast at this time. Okay, Master Mosquito, I hope you won't do such random and dangerous things next time. Our Earth convoy can completely rely on you to survive. I hope you won't do such mindless things. Daphne shook her head helplessly. He shook his head and said, I hope your flight this time won't cause big trouble. If those guys above pursue us all the way, our convoy will be doomed. Jia Yan couldn't help but feel weird when he heard that he kept talking about the team. You must know that the Earth convoy, and the so-called Earth convoy, were all done randomly and unintentionally by him. Now that he has completed his short-term mutation goal, the existence of this convoy is no longer necessary for him. Unexpectedly, Daphne had a different idea. Master Big Mosquito. I know you may not have thought too far ahead when establishing this fleet, but you are extremely concerned about the existence of this fleet. Do you know why? Daphne one mouthful and one master, as if to show goodwill to Jia Yan. Why? Because if we want to return to Earth, the help of the convoy is indispensable. It is best if the convoy can develop, so that the speed at which we can collect supplies can be greatly improved. Daphne said something, and then she said something again that surprised Jia Yan. Do you know what method I'm talking about to return to Earth? It's the same method we came here with, yes. It's gravitational waves. After I returned to the headquarters of the Rulan Empire, I used the high-tech equipment there to conduct a series of tests and data collection. Together with some of the data I already had, I have calculated the data that can reproduce the last gravitational wave event. Got it? What? Can it really happen again? Jia Yan was shocked. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 445. Even Jia Yan understands a simple astronomical principle. The gray-yellow star is extremely far away from the Earth. Even if he does collect a spacecraft through his own methods, it will be at least 10 or 20 years before he can fly back to the Earth, even if he starts flying immediately. It is uncertain whether the Earth will be destroyed by the exploration ships of the Rulan Empire and the Asta Empire by then. But if a gravitational wave event can be triggered again, wouldn't it be possible to return to Earth in about a month? So Jia Yan was extremely excited when he heard the news. When Daphne saw Jia Yan being so excited, a big stone in her heart finally fell to the ground. After all, as an Earth mosquito, Daphne cannot guarantee that he will have any attachment to the Earth. Maybe after coming to this planet, he will discover some benefits of alien civilization and no longer have any thoughts of returning to the Earth. Then there is no possibility of cooperation. Master Giant Mosquito, my method has been simulated. It is still very possible, and as an effective plan to travel through gravitational waves, you may become the only being in the endless starry sky who has this ability. Jia Yanfu had surprise in his eyes. Why do you say that? You conducted a simulation test through Rulan Empire's computer. Wouldn't Rulan Empire have access to this method? Daphne really smiled. She flipped up her red hair, revealing her beautiful and graceful figure. When I escaped, the data had been destroyed, and even if they could still recover the data, they couldn't have the ability you have, which is the blue defense on your body. You know, gravitational waves, it's not an ordinary thing. Although I don't know how powerful your defense is, I can be sure that your defense ability has a strange effect on that kind of gravitational wave. Otherwise, it is almost impossible to have someone who can defend against gravitational waves for a long time. Material. So even if the Rulan Empire can get the data in my hand, they can't copy your ability. You are the only one in the world who can travel like this. Of course. I can't guarantee whether there are other evolved beasts with the same ability. You have the same defense capabilities. But they don't have the research information I have, right? Jia Yan finally felt. It was really a right decision for him not to kill Delphine, even though he wanted to kill Delphine several times. Even before that, I had always been thinking about Daphne. That was not because he was thinking about her beauty, but because he was worried about her revealing his information all the time, so he was thinking about killing her. But now, it really doesn't matter. He has successfully mutated. Probably advanced to the gray-yellow star or even the apex of the star field, a starry sky-level powerful creature. Then his worries will be much less. Although the starry sky class is not truly capable of dominating a war. But when it comes to escaping, you will be much more confident. If you add this ability to travel through gravitational waves, then Jia Yan can really be said to be able to cause a huge wave in the starry sky. Fortunately, I did it last time. Daphne was not killed. He felt happy for a while. Daphne saw that he was thinking about something, so she continued with a smile. As for the data I have calculated, if you want to truly realize it, you must have certain equipment and material support, so this is why I want to develop the Earth Racing Team. By the way, this racing team has a good name, and you are really willing to let it go directly to waste lose. Jia Yan was speechless for a while. He didn't feel that his previous judgment was wrong. From his perspective, he only valued his own strength more. Although Daphne looked at things from a slightly more comprehensive perspective, if the two parties changed their identities, she probably wouldn't be able to think about it. Developing the Earth fleet. But now that I have Daphne's answer, what else is there to consider? Naturally, follow Daphne's approach and practice it. Okay. I hope you won't give me a reason to kill you again. Next time, I won't let you go again. Although he already had an understanding of Daphne's statement, Jia Yan already said this with a fierce look in his eyes. Daphne was stunned for a moment, then her lips curled up into a charming smile. She didn't reply, because everything she said now was false. The gap between the two couldn't be excused in 2 sentences. Everything had to wait for the facts to speak for themselves in the future. The Earth convoy is busy again. Some rumors also spread quickly. Some life forms saw the building where the tentacle monster existed from a distance, and it actually exploded. What appeared inside was not a tentacle monster, but the assassin they had seen before. Grown-ups. This rumor has been circulating in the convoy. Some people believe it, and some people don't believe it. The unbelieving life forms think that the flying monster they said is much larger than the previous assassin, and even looks more powerful. Many, they don't believe that it is in this place. After all, if a powerful life form wants to continue to improve its strength, that is a complicated problem. They know the strength of the assassin. In an alien civilization, if a person with this level of strength wants to furthermore, it is only a matter of time and effort, and it is impossible to make a big leap forward all at once. Rumors turned into rumors, the team finally began to get on the right track, and things finally became more and more orderly. The entire team's life form felt at ease. Compared to the past when the assassin had sole power, during the period when the entire team was in turmoil, now thanks to the assistance of Miss Delphine, the Earth team has finally begun to feel like a powerful force. Coupled with the terrifying top-level combat power in the team, at this time, the entire team can be said to have the support of the people and everyone is united. Kaga. Do you want to sign up for school? Lulu can go even if she doesn't have money. At dusk, Lulu was carrying a large cleaning machine. The rabbit ears on her head kept standing up and down, and she was very nervous. In front of her was a little boy riding on the sweeper. This little boy looked calmer than Lulu, but he still had the naughty nature of a little boy. They don't want Lulu, you are so stupid, The little boy rolled his eyes and was about to say some hurtful words. But tears already appeared in Lulu's eyes, and big tears rolled down. This made the little boy panic. I'm kidding. Miss Delphine has said that all children of appropriate age can go. You can sign up tomorrow. Really? Lulu can go to school too. Hearing this, Lulu beamed with joy. She and Kajia were only 8 or 9 years old, for them. It's time to envy those children who can study. A series of instructions issued by Daphne. Everyone in the team finally understood that Master Assassin and Master Defuni were really sincere in developing this team. Even some infrastructure that only big powers and big cities can build has begun construction. Schools, security systems, import and export bureaus, etc., etc. These tiny facilities are as numerous as a feather, even if the Earth convoy has experienced another population plunder. With a population of about 50,000, it is still impossible to absorb so many working facilities. Most of them are just verbal titles, some talented people. He wears many hats, which surprises countless people. I don't know what direction Miss Daphne, who made the plan, wants to lead the convoy. Battleship. There must be a battleship. We can no longer be a force like a convoy in the future. The Earth convoy has officially changed its name. It has become Earth City. The Earth Army has begun to expand, and personnel training has been normalized. The collection of supplies and even outward expansion must be included in the agenda. Defuni stood in the huge building that had just been built, eloquently delivering her speech to some of the senior talents she had personally promoted. This building was built using a tall tree in Huangzhou, and eventually turned into a giant building more than 70 meters high. The area is exaggerated to more than 200 meters in radius. That's an exaggeration of about 40,000 square meters. Although the rough construction was hasty and crude, using the wisdom of countless people in the convoy, a building of this scale was built in just a few days. Its title is Yidian, which is the abbreviation of the main hall. And why it is so huge, you can understand it after seeing the towering body lazily nestled in the center of the hall, that is, the assassin lord who has become more powerful. This is not only the meeting hall, but also Jia Yan's temporary residence. From nearly 20 meters to exactly 30 meters now, most chariot buildings, even if they can accommodate Jia Yan, cannot make him comfortable anymore. How could the strongest man of a huge power, who was also the ruler, condescend? So even if Jia Yan himself doesn't have any opinions, Ulus has uncharacteristically strict demands on this point, and Jia Yan must be made comfortable. So this building came into being, and Ulus even left most things behind and started building Jia Yan's new residence. At this time, Defuni began her speech under the care of Jia Yan. For Jia Yan, he really doesn't have many similar talents, so it is better to be a listener at this time. Anyway, Defuni has discussed most things with him. His main role here is to make the life forms in the leadership below the stage understand the content of these discussions more obediently. But Miss Daphne, battleship, how can we get hold of a battleship? This is not an aircraft. A living being who was dumbfounded in the audience finally couldn't bear it anymore. Even though she knew that Jia Yan also passed the resolution that Defuni said, she still had the courage to ask questions. In fact, what he wants to say is that even aircraft used for combat may be difficult for them to obtain. It requires too many connections and energy. As for the battleship, this is simply a fantasy. You must know that battleships are belonging to the military. On this planet, except for the warring parties and the few warships with malicious civilization on the periphery of the starry sky, it is impossible to have other warships. Want to get one? It's easier to dream. What you say makes sense. Even aircraft are difficult to obtain in the current golden desert. Daphne smiled and looked at the life form with her beautiful big eyes. The opponent was a thin-looking being, who looked like a noodle, but reached a terrifying height of about 5 meters. Jia Yan was prostrate on the ground, with his head not much higher than him. Of course, if Jia Yan stood on 6 feet, it would be at least 50 or 60 meters. Jia Yan looked at it with his compound eyes. He knew that this kind of life form was a kind of life form with extremely high intelligence in the interstellar world. Although the individual was huge, it did not have much personal fighting power, often due to attacks from other civilizations. Although the country was destroyed and occupied, they had extremely high IQs and were excellent consultants in some aspects. After Daifuni finished the first half of her sentence, the noodle-like life form. She also nodded slightly, as if she thought Daifuni accepted her statement. But those are the opinions of ordinary Jinmo forces. Daifuni's voice suddenly changed. Our Earth convoy, no. Earth City is not their ordinary forces. You must know that even the strongest force in the Golden Desert cannot be our opponent. Even if they all unite. Daphne's dark red eyes are sparkling. Haha, even if they all unite, they cannot be our opponent in Earth City. Before you work for Earth City, please keep this in mind first. What? The living beings below. They were all stunned. Miss Daphne actually said such a thing. Fleet Earth, no, now it is the Earth City, which is indeed extremely powerful, with an individual as powerful as the assassin. Lord Ulus even mysteriously told them before that the assassin is likely to have the ability to challenge Jin Mishong. The strength of a strong man. But even then, Earth City cannot challenge the entire Golden Desert. You know, if you are not the strongest, you must be the opponent of the entire desert. Because many forces and convoys rely not on strong men, but on technological weapons. Some of their weapons are even comparable to those of the army. Miss Delphine, aren't you a little too naive? Even with the master assassin, the strength of Earth City cannot be so incredible. You don't believe it? Daifuni shook her head, and then looked at Jia Yan. It seemed that the other party didn't support him at all, and was still lying there lazily. Daifuni continued to smile helplessly. After the discussion, this big mosquito handed over everything to her, as if she was the owner of the motorcade. She waved her hand, and the tone of her words also changed. If you don't believe it, I have nothing to do, but fighting for the space battleship will not change, and it is impossible to change. I don't expect you to really get the space battleship, but I want you to pay attention to some information about the space battleship. That's it? The other thing is the large transport ship. This is what you need to investigate. Even if it is docked in a large city, you should go and investigate it for me. As for the construction of Earth City, you can develop it, but don't invest too much energy in the future, so that those forces who come to trade will think that we are going to develop here for a long time. Daifuni smiled, with an incomprehensible look in her eyes. Glossy, shining, as if full of wisdom. This. The living beings below were immediately surprised by the two most urgent tasks sent by Daphne. Anyone with a little brain can come up with an answer by just thinking about the correlation between the two tasks. Master Assassin and Miss Daphne actually have no idea of using this piece of Huangzhou as a permanent base. This. These life forms were all dumbfounded. Through Daifuni's words, they had already guessed that the hearts of Lord Assassin and Miss Daifuni had even drifted far away. Space. Don't show such surprised faces, everyone, there is still a mission here. Next, apart from the spaceship, I will list some supplies, and you will send 1/3 of your people to go out and search. This is also an urgent mission. But the Noodle Man was confused again. This time he didn't even look at the supplies list, his expression hesitant. If Daphne and Big Mosquito weren't so overpowering, he could hardly help but say, "You two are crazy." But this is a smart Noodle Man, but the rigorous spirit of the Noodle Man is stimulating him to tell some truth. Master Assassin, Miss Daphne, what should we do if we encounter resistance or even a siege on our collection of supplies and spaceships? Daifuni glanced at Jia Yan, who finally stood up for the first time in this meeting. The noodle man was startled and quickly bent down, showing an expression of respect. Resistance. Siege, Jia Yan's faint male voice echoed throughout the entire meeting hall. Powerful brainwave power, it seems that the entire meeting hall is filled with secret troops. All living beings were unable to move at this time. The incredible brainwave power made them all horrified. They finally understood how powerful the assassin was at this time. Even a few of them are extremely powerful monsters, and one even ranks 62nd in the ranking of the strongest men in the Golden Desert. However, these powerful life forms were still unable to move at all. Jia Yan just controlled the brainwave power at will and completely controlled all materials within a few hundred meters. Even the air was stagnant. If they want to resist, they can. What awaits them will only be death. After Jia Yan finished speaking these words, the extremely powerful brainwave power suddenly disappeared. All the life forms in the hall seemed to have just been fished out of the water. Those with respiratory organs began to breathe desperately. Horrible. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 446. Thank you all for your messages of support, and I would also like to thank all the book friends who have subscribed to the full text by You Loves You, haha. These alien life forms all have messy eyes. Those who have sweat glands, or organs similar to those that resolve excited emotions, express those organs to their maximum intensity. Especially the noodle man, because he was the one who took the initiative to ask the question, and the fear in his heart at this moment was the greatest. So strong. Is this the power that Master Assassin will have when he becomes stronger? Among those living beings, the only one who reached the 62nd rank of Jin Mo was a ghost-like one with a pale face. All his fighting power was based on brainwave power, but facing Jia the powerful brainwave of this big mosquito can't possess any defensive power. This made him tremble directly. When Jia Yan took back his power, Daifuni took a deep look behind her. She had also been affected by Jia Yan's brainwave power before and was unable to move. She knew very well that Jia Yan's move was not only a demonstration against his subordinates, but also a demonstration against her. But Daphne doesn't think it's necessary. Because this time, she didn't play any tricks at all. Okay, but we don't have much time. We can only give you 20 days at most. It depends on how you perform in 20 days. Because according to my estimation, in 20 days, our battle will be maybe it won't attract the attention of those superpowers, but after 20 days, it's hard to say, Daifuni spoke solemnly again. 20 days in this world is equivalent to about 80 days on Earth, which is more than 2 months. All the life forms below were dumbfounded. How could they do so many things in 2 months? Even if they have roughly understood the meaning of Daifuni's words, the other party wants them to rob it. But no matter how much we rob in 2 months, we can't get so many supplies, right? Not to mention wanting to get a spaceship. Daphne gave instructions one by one, and when the meeting ended, the participants all left with expressions of disbelief. They have already guessed the future thoughts of Lord Assassin and Miss Daphne. I'm taking too big a step. I wonder if it will scare them. Daifuni stood pretty in the meeting hall, with a hint of exhaustion in her expression. After all, she had discussed so many things with Jia Yan, and explaining them to her subordinates was a troublesome matter. It was natural that she was exhausted both physically and mentally. If you don't want to hurry up, we are enough to attract attention, and I don't think that the diplomat of the biochemical empire who left will just give up. Jia Yan continued to crawl on the spot without raising his head, and said in a low voice. Daphne was silent. In fact, she didn't know that the Earth's convoy at this time was no longer as stable as her subordinates looked at it. What she said before about setting up a school and setting up a series of prototype government facilities were all a calming act. Hidden dangers have long existed. Jia Yan and she are actually working hard to avoid variables in Earth City. After Daifuni left, Jia Yan continued to crawl on the spot. He is recuperating. Compared with Daifuni's all-round ability, Jia Yan doesn't have that kind of ability, but when it comes to fighting and understanding crises, he can be regarded as the best among them. Daifuni, this girl, understands crises far less deeply than he does. Daifuni's prediction was that the crisis would occur in 20 days, but Jia Yan didn't think so. He had tried his best to mutate before, even killing chickens to obtain eggs, and exploiting his own convoys. This was because he, a big mosquito who fought for a living, had smelled the smell of danger from one thing after another. 20 days. The reaction of those enemies would take far less than 20 days. Jia Yan felt the mutated energy in his body continue to increase, and a faint evil spirit exuded in his eyes. The sky was dark, and the newly renamed Earth City ushered in a collective sleep time. Only a few staff members were still holding on and did not fall asleep. At this time, the Earth City changed from the previous bustle and fell into silence. Whirring whirring. A series of powerful figures were flying from the dark sky. There are also several huge shadows on the ground, running continuously in the sand. These shadows in the sky and on the ground are towering and tall, and each one is an unbelievably powerful life. Some of these guys are huge aliens that reach a height of 20 meters, and some are ferocious birds flying in the sky. There is also a monster that looks like a big snake, more than 70 meters long, so terrifying. In front of you is the Earth convoy. It is said that they have changed their name in the past few days. It is called Earth City. It seems that the flying monster has a big plan. It's a pity that his grand plan cannot be realized. Today is the day when they will be destroyed. The powerful waves emitted by the powerful beings at this time were all impressive beings that ranked among the top 10 or more in the Golden Desert. And at this time, there are more than 10 walking on the ground and flying in the sky. Their number alone exceeds the so-called top 10 of the Golden Desert. If other forces see it, they will understand. In addition to the well-known strong men in the Golden Desert, there are also some who are simply hidden strong men. Although those existences are not well known, their strength is not at all like those of those under the famous strong man. There are so many existences equivalent to the top 10 strongest people in the Golden Desert, and they are all dispatched. Faintly visible under the faint light, at the front of all the powerful men was a powerful life form that looked like it was carrying a turtle shell. There was a strange light in the eyes of this life form. He was holding a huge metal hammer in his hand, and his expression was indifferent while running. So many monsters were all brought by him. As the most powerful hidden force in the Golden Desert, his force has already subdued all the powerful ones. What outsiders don't know is that those strong men were subdued one by one and agreed to the plan of coordinated operations. That is, if there is a strong foreigner who does not follow the rules, then they will fight together to expel that strong man or strangle him. The big mosquito stirred up the changes in the Golden Desert again and again, and even after warning, it had no effect. At this time, it's time for these strong men to take action. Boom 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 boom. The movement of the strong men running on the ground is not too big. What they want to fight is a surprise battle. If they can destroy the so-called Earth City members cleanly when they eliminate that strong man, that would be their happiest thing. Things I noticed. But there were still streaks of yellow sand rolling up in the sand. Very good. Keep moving forward. The yellow sand area where Earth City is located is only about 50 kilometers away from here, converted to Earth distance. The powerful life form carrying the turtle shell had a look of excitement on its face at this time. The opponent has not noticed their arrival yet. It is foreseeable that if they suddenly attack, the opponent's powerful flying life form and even the so-called the tentacle monsters may be disturbed by this, and maybe their victory will be more decisive. Just when he thought of many good things, suddenly, all the monsters had a change in their expressions. Stop. The guy with the turtle shell on his back suddenly issued his order. A group of powerful life forms, all like well-trained soldiers, stopped one by one. The life forms flying in the sky circled and came to the sky above the life forms on the ground. More than 10 powerful monsters, one by one. With a cold expression, he looked ahead. These monsters are all very powerful people. Where have they not seen the abnormal situation in front of them? I saw a huge body rising melodiously in the distant land in front of these monsters, slowly rising from Huangzhou 50 kilometers away. After that, they gradually flew towards the direction of their group of life forms. 1. Facing more than 10. However, the flying monster over there seemed to have no awareness of facing such a large number of powerful creatures. At this time, it was flying without any panic at all. Just flying so lightly, getting closer to here little by little. Slowly, its figure is getting closer and closer. At this time, the turtle shell monster was a little surprised. He saw that although the appearance of the monster flying over was 90% similar to the so-called assassin he had seen, at this time, his body suddenly enlarged a lot. A body close to 20 meters and a body of 30 meters is definitely not the same concept. How could he have changed so much in such a short period of time? In other words, when I saw him before, my eyes were wrong? But no matter what, this battle is inevitable. The distant figure looked slow, but in fact it was not slow at all. Not long after, under the vigilance of a group of life forms, it came to the sky above them. This gentleman, long time no see. Jia Yan's slightly hoarse baritone suddenly sounded around all the living creatures. He looked at the dozens of life forms below him indifferently. As expected. As early as before, he had guessed that he would not be able to develop easily in this golden desert, and among the forces he provoked, these local forces in the golden desert were most likely to be the first to jump out. So the arrival of the other party at this time was also expected. But Jia Yan didn't expect that what he saw at this time was so many powerful creatures. Look, that monster is even more powerful than the fifth strongman Long Wuo, that is, the turtle shell monster that he once warned him about. At this time, among the dozen monsters, it has become incompetent at all. Get up. If it were Jia Yan before the mutation, even if his energy was completely restored, it would be impossible for him to face such a powerful fighting team. After all, there is a huge difference between fighting in a group and fighting alone, not to mention that at this time, Jia Yan is fighting alone against a group of opponents. But the only person I was afraid of was him in the past. Now. Jia Yan smiled confidently in his heart. No need to be polite. Dear Lord Assassin, I have come to warn you before, but you did not listen to my warning, so we are in today's situation. You should know what we are here for, right? The monster carrying the tortoise shell looked at Jia Yan with evil intent at this time. Although they were all gathered on the ground, there were such a large number of them, even if the other side strangely became larger than the rumors, but none of these monsters thought that there was a possibility of failure on their side. If you can win just by being bigger, the largest of the battle pets in the battle arena is 30 meters. Why hasn't a strong one appeared? Jia Yan looked at so many monsters below. He knew that he couldn't show his strength this time, and even he didn't know what impact it would have on the situation after it was shown. However, the fact that he resisted a battleship attack outside the atmosphere of the gray-yellow star may have already begun to have a fermenting effect. At this time, it does not matter whether he is exposed or not. I know the purpose of your coming, but unfortunately, you can't defeat me. So, I will only say this once, please go back home. Otherwise, if any damage occurs next, don't blame me for being ruthless. Jia Yan's voice was full of energy at this time, and an indescribable magnanimity was revealed in him. After all, as a starry sky-level existence, Jia Yan was no longer the same person he was before. The monsters below are roughly the same as the turtle shell monster. If he fights alone, he can't even defeat him before the mutation, let alone him now. Even if they are gathered together, to Jia Yan, who is looking at the starry sky level, they are just a bunch of people without any threat at all. How brave! How dare you be so arrogant! When the turtle shell monster heard this, he was extremely angry. The powerful life forms beside him were even more furious. You must know that they are almost dominant in this golden desert. They usually form alliances with each other. Under such circumstances, it is impossible to take action. They are basically overlords. At this time, they are actually being underestimated by a strange flying monster that has just arrived in this desert. How could this not make them all extremely angry? Go! Earth City is destined to be destroyed today. The turtle shell monster roared, and then floated up. Facing a flying monster, there were indeed many disadvantages for life forms like them that mainly fought on the ground, but under the siege of so many strong men, they believed that those disadvantages were enough. The difference in quantity is evened out. What's more, there are 4 flying life forms on my side, and the other party is just an individual. Boom boom boom. Life forms on the ground use their own brainwave power to rise into the sky. Over the past 300 years, the rise of the biochemical empire has not only caused the war to spread and expand throughout the entire star field, but also led to a huge development of the so-called single strong ones. The power of brain waves has during this period, it became almost a must-have skill for the strong, so much so that these powerful golden desert life forms were able to fly using the power of brain waves. The difference was just a matter of proficiency and flying speed. Boom boom boom. Jia Yan stood proudly more than 100 meters high in the air, looking at the monsters rising into the sky one by one with his shining compound eyes. He carefully calculated that there were 12 monsters in this group. Among them, there are about 7 or 8 with similar strength. In his opinion, the strongest one may be the super python that reaches 80 meters in length. There are also 2 flying life forms, which are also stronger than other opponents. But these strong men alone are not enough to deal with me. Far from enough. The indifference and arrogance in his heart suddenly arose. Before more than 10 figures shot in front of him, his body advanced instead of retreating, charging downwards. The wings fluttered. There was a loud roar. Instead of taking advantage of his flying advantage to dodge, he rushed back down. He was simply seeking his own death. Below, almost all the enemies thought that Jia Yan would use his flying advantage to engage in an evasive battle, but in that case they also had 4 flying beings among them, which could effectively block him. They never expected that this monster known as the Lord Assassin was actually not an assassin, but a guy who charged head-on. Die! The turtle shell monster was the first to bear the brunt. The brainwave power of this monster was stronger than that of other individuals, so together with those pure flying life forms, they launched an attack on Jia Yan in the first echelon. When his double hammers are opened and closed, they have extremely powerful power. At the same time, the fluctuations on the double hammers have a strange flashing moment. This is actually blessed with a gravity system similar to that of an aircraft. Heavy hammer. This kind of fluctuation cannot threaten the lives nearby. It only makes his already heavy metal hammer even heavier. If he hits it with lightning speed, it can be said to be extremely terrifying. Muscles and fractures can be broken in the blink of an eye. At the same time, several other flying monsters in the same echelon also had their own fluctuations and launched attacks one by one towards Jia Yan. Among them is a guy who always looks like a big bird, with gray feathers all over his body. The sharp tips of his claws have a touch of blood. This blood is similar to Jia Yan's knife-shaped horns on his front feet. After using the power of brain waves, they are extremely sharp. And it is so powerful that even a powerful chariot cannot survive its grasp. These 2 attacks are the most threatening. Faced with these 2 attacks, Jia Yan raised his slender tone and stabbed, using a needle rarely seen, towards the captured bird monster. The stylet in Jia Yan's mouthparts may be the sharpest part inside the entire mouthparts. But in the past, Jia Yan thought that his needle was still not so strong that he rarely used it against the enemy. But it was different now. During the self-adjustment mutation, he thought that his mouth needle might no longer be like before, and he had to rely on it to perform a feeding function, so he wanted to use this part as a means of attack to develop it. Extreme. Then, just like the cuticles of the forefoot, layers of azure substance were attached to the stylet. At this time, the electricity shot out, like a cannonball, and stretched out 10 meters in length, making the bird monster in front of it turn pale with fright. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 447. When, with a bang, the needle that Jia Yan shot out pierced the opponent's sharp claws. This is because Jia Yan did not directly shoot the mouth needle into the opponent's head. Otherwise, with the speed at which the mouth needle was fired, he might not even have time to react, and his brain would burst and he would be dead. Even so, the powerful needle shot collided, making a huge explosion sound in the air, sparks flying, lighting up a large area of the desert. The bird's body shook violently, and was hit by the huge force and flew downwards. But at this moment, the turtle shell monster had already seized the opportunity, smashed a pair of big hammers in the air, and fell hard towards Jia Yan's protruding mouth parts. In his opinion, if such a slender organ is hit by his hammer with a terrible attack weight, it will definitely be unlucky and it will definitely break. Different from other monsters, as a being who had confronted Jia Yan before, he believed that the mosquito had become larger and must be much stronger at this time, so instead of finding a way to quickly deal with the opponent at this time, he being able to have the opportunity to disintegrate some of its attack methods is the main means to win step by step. The metal sledgehammer fell with the roaring wind, like an antelope hanging its horns, and there was no trace to be found. It was so terrifying that it was unbelievable. At this moment, an equally slender thing, like the lightning that broke through the space, came through the air and stood in front of the opponent's huge metal hammer. When another collision, this time even more terrifying, an incredibly terrifying explosion that shook the air. The giant metal hammer was directly rippled away at this time, and the huge body of the turtle shell monster even fell backwards in the air due to the huge impact. All the besieging powerful monsters couldn't help but gasp when they saw this scene. Master Kaki's strength is actually no match for this guy. Although this group of monsters were all similar in strength, the turtle shell monster they called Master Kaki was definitely the most powerful among them. At this time, these monsters actually saw Kaki stabbing at the opponent's front foot. Next, they were evenly matched. How could this not make them have frightening thoughts? But when things come to an end, these monsters have no choice but to go up, and no one would think that with so many strong men coming, this flying monster can still defeat them. This turtle shell monster is quite powerful. I used a blow with a full third of my strength, but I couldn't shake him. Presumably among those frightened strong monsters, Jia Yan also had a new look at the strength of the turtle shell monster. He did not use all his strength at this time because at this time he had a high regard for the strength of the powerful monster group in front of him and wanted to use them to test his own strength. If there are so many powerful people in the Golden Desert, if they can be defeated easily, then Jia Yan has reason to believe that he has definitely reached the starry sky level. Another flying monster stabbed out its sharp front beak in the direction of Jia Yan. The powerful brainwave power of several monsters attacked, severely suppressing the air around Jia Yan, making his body feel tight, as if he was being restrained. Well done. Jia Yan almost felt a trace of pressure under so many attacks. He had no doubt that if he were before the mutation, he would easily be besieged to death by these strong men. But now, defeating them is not difficult. But this was a situation of dominance that he had never seen before. How could he miss such a precious opportunity? In order to experience the effect of actual combat, he controlled his power to not exceed half of the controllable energy. His body twisted sideways. What, the flying monster that was stabbed by its front beak showed shock in its eyes. The monster in front of him seemed to have narrowly avoided the front beak under his fatal blow. The monsters from behind continued to attack one by one. Although Jia Yan surprised them by defusing their attacks several times, they also saw that the opponent's strength was also reduced due to the suppression of his brainwave power. Even moving is a little difficult. This is not surprising at all. You must know that this is equivalent to the joint brainwave power suppression of a dozen of the most powerful monsters in the Golden Desert. They are confident that even if a Starry Sky level powerhouse comes to face them, their combined brainwave power can easily suppress the opponent for a moment, let alone the flying monster in front of them. Phew! Phew! Jia Yankunkun dodged another forward grabbing attack, but the wind blew loudly in his ears, and the two ear-piercing sounds came faster than other attacks. Not having time to watch, Jia Yan was so excited that he turned his head and saw that he had narrowly avoided two sharp objects in front of him. These are two things made of metal, with small rocket ejection devices on them. On the outside of the battle circle, an anthropomorphic monster was holding a pair of metal bows and arrows. At this time, there was also a hint of movement. He was the only long-range attacker in the team, but Jia Yan was able to dodge the attacks under his almost perfect sneak attacks. This kind of fighting instinct made him incredible. In the battle circle, fight fast, and all the monsters will go crazy. Dang 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 dang. Boom 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. When surrounded by all the monsters, Jia Yan would quickly stretch out his front legs and collide with the turtle shell monster, making an earth-shattering sound. Or move your body to avoid the probing of an unknown monster. Or you can use your mouth needle vigorously to hit a monster that takes the opportunity to sneak attack, force the opponent away, and neutralize the attack. Jia Yan found that his suppressive strength was just right, and it was extremely shocking when fighting. However, when dealing with these monsters, there are great benefits in being reluctant. His ability to fight in groups improved rapidly in the terrifying and changing battles, and he began to use all possible means, not only the front legs and mouth needles that he often used as attack and defense weapons, but also the midfoot and rear legs that did not participate in the battle very much. Enough, everyone started to join the battle. Even in the critical situation of an arrow shot, he had to shake the two tentacles on his head that he rarely used. Just knock away the incoming arrows. In fact, Jia Yan is not worried about being injured by attacks, but because he is afraid that if the other party sees that he has not suffered any damage even after being hit by these attacks, they will see that he is hiding his strength. You know, Jia Yan's strongest point is also his strongest confidence, and that is his own defense, especially the blue defense. Not to mention these monsters, the previous space battleship attacks did not break through the blue defense. That will be Jia Yan's real backing in the future, and also his backup when facing other Starry Sky classes. At this time, he was facing these monsters just to practice his skills. If he had to rely on strong defense to win against them, then his so-called dream of matching the Starry Sky level would really be just a dream. Fortunately, these monsters obviously can't force out Jia Yan's full strength. Can't take him. How is it possible? Mr. Kaki, who looks like a turtle, is holding his own giant hammer in his hand, but he is floating not far from the battlefield and cannot move forward at all. Because after his arm collided with Jia Yan's front foot while holding the giant hammer, his muscles all over his body began to cramp. This was because the opponent was too strong. Even he couldn't resist it. The monsters fighting Jia Yan head-on became rarer. After some attacks, their strength suddenly dropped a lot due to the collision with Jia Yan. After that, they had to fly aside to recuperate and let other team members come forward. Siege. The situation has become so anxious. Separate one person, go to Earth City and kill him, go quickly. Suddenly, Master Kaki's eyes flashed with a ruthless look, and he issued an order to the weakest besieger. All the monsters present had joy in their eyes. After all, Earth City is a city built by this monster. If it is attacked, the opponent will definitely have inner fluctuations, and they may lose to them later. They have understood that this is not a battle that will end easily. They want to seize any advantage at this time. Seeing the slightly injured strong monster flying fiercely towards the Earth convoy 50 kilometers away, Jia Yan, who was surrounded by several monsters at this time, also looked cold. In fact, he doesn't have much thoughts about cherishing the Earth racing team. After all, he originally created this force with an indifferent attitude. It's just that now, Daifuni has spent so much energy to create the template for the future, and he has also put in a lot of effort. If he loses it so easily, even he will definitely feel a little unwilling in his heart. As for the Earth convoy fending off the injured monster alone, Jia Yan didn't have the slightest hope. After all, it was an existence equivalent to the top 10 strongest people in the Golden Desert. How could Daifuni and other scattered Earth convoy members resist each other? Regarding the next plan, how could he let these monsters destroy it? Stay. Jia Yan's body in the encirclement suddenly moved his wings, and his body actually sped up in an instant. The injured monster that was not flying very fast. When he saw Jia Yan chasing after him quickly from behind, he suddenly became frightened. He violently activated his brainwave power and flew quickly in the air. As a ground creature, he made a big mistake at this time, which was to use the power of brainwaves to leave. Therefore, his figure was instantly approached by Jia Yan's big body. The besieging life forms that were chasing after them were all shocked. They thought that their surrounding net was very tight before, but the performance of the flying monster in front of them told them that the other party was surrounded by them on purpose. If they wanted to, it is extremely easy to escape. Jia Yan used his own speed. How could the injured monster flying in front of him escape? When he was distracted and looked behind him, he suddenly saw a sharp forefoot, the front end of which emitted a terrifying blue light, stabbing towards his face. Jia Yan was using about half of his flying speed at this time, and his strength was almost half as well, which was already much higher than what he was before the mutation. The injured monster who was ordered to attack Earth City was ahead of him. How could he, who was already injured, avoid such a fierce and fast stab? Suddenly, the powerful life forms chasing Jia Yan from behind saw a huge blood flower blooming in the night. Phew! Jia Yan's knife-shaped cuticle on his front foot pierced the opponent's head without any lag, causing him to lose any life information. This is the first strong intruder to fall in this battle tonight. The next moment, Jia Yan swung the monster stabbed in his forefoot without looking back, and threw the powerful monster creature's body down to the sand below. At the same time, the speed changed and he hid to the side. The next moment, the ferocious attacks from the powerful life forms that were chasing him had already landed in the air where he was before. Jia Yan actually once again used his magical dodge ability to brush aside those attacks one after another, which made all the monsters behind him incredulous. To their chagrin, their attacks seemed to be just a little bit closer to hitting the big ones every time. Mosquitoes, but the other party seems to avoid them every time because of good luck. Surround him. He must tighten his defense this time. He will not be able to dodge our attack next time. The turtle shell monster was also getting angry at this time. As the initiator of this great showdown, his identity is extremely sensitive. If this battle fails, the prestige of the super secret force he belongs to will be greatly reduced, and he may even order these Jin Mo Zhong in the future. Strong people may no longer listen to the tune. How could he accept this? At this time, he was the first to set an example. The giant hammers in his arms hit each other, making a loud noise, and attacked Jia Yan. At the same time, he sent a message with brainwave power to the largest behemoth present at the rear, Master Wei Shi, please take action with all your strength. This monster has definitely shaken the rules of our Jin Mo. If we don't get rid of him today, I'm afraid Jin Mo will from now on there is no place for us to stand. You are right. The existence of this monster has affected the rules of our golden desert. In this case, I will take action with all my strength. But I am not absolutely sure. He may be a more powerful existence than me. So you must help me from the side. At the very back of all the powerful monsters in the golden desert, the 80-meter-long supergiant snake, at this time, the pair of pupils on the front of its head turned into a vertical shape. Although this monster had stepped forward before to participate in the mission of besieging Jiayan, it had been wandering on the edge of the battlefield, making very few moves, and had almost no impact on Jiayan. But at this time, when his pupils were completely erect, the dangerous aura emanating from his body suddenly became extremely serious. The monsters all trembled when they saw this scene. At this time, the turtle shell monster even sent out a mocking brainwave power transmission. Master Wei Shi is joking. If you take action, how can he still resist? You know, you are. We are the strongest man in the golden desert. When he finished speaking, he saw the huge snake body that was originally wandering around the outside of the battle circle suddenly moving. Quick! The straight figure seemed to turn into lightning in an instant, breaking through the distance of several hundred meters and rushing into the center of the battle circle. This figure was extremely terrifying, and the energy fluctuations it emitted made the besieging life forms along the way feel extremely frightened, and they all retreated to the left and right. They were prepared with the previous message transmission, but Jia Yan, who was in the center of the battlefield, had no preparations. Suddenly, he saw a speeding figure that he had never encountered before. Pounce towards your location. The surprise in my mind was only for a short moment. Jia Yan never thought that among this group of monsters, there would not be an extremely powerful being. The only question was whether this hidden monster would cause him any trouble in this battle. Sure enough, after one of its companions died, the basilisk exploded. There was a hint of interest in Jia Yan's mind, and then his brainwave power suddenly improved a lot at this time. Time around me seems to be moving slower. He could easily feel that the opponent's figure that struck at him like lightning slowed down, while his own body slowed down and gradually gained a little speed. If it weren't for Jia Yan himself, in a subtle state, you may not even be able to sense it. He moved slowly, and the huge snake shadow on the opposite side also slowly entered the battle circle. Boom! A group of powerful life forms were watching around. At this time, everyone was in horror and a little shocked. One attack and one defense between the two, their combat effectiveness suddenly increased. That basilisk is what they know as Master Wei Shi. The existence of this monster is also the biggest backing and guarantee for their party tonight. As the number one in the Golden Desert, its name is not just called casually. Unlike the nominally top 10 warriors, this Wei Shi was a real warrior who defeated countless people in the Golden Desert, both covertly and covertly, and finally won the title of number one. His throne was truly deserved. Return. But the guy on the opposite side, under Master Wei Shi's sneak attack at this time, still managed to deal with it calmly. The combat effectiveness displayed by the big Mosquito now can be said to have been greatly improved compared to before. It can be seen that this unfathomable monster was hiding its strength before. Boom! The two behemoths in the battle actually collided fiercely in the air. The shock wave caused by the battle caused a sandstorm to rise into the sky hundreds of meters below the sky. An entire hill-like sand dune was blown away. Come here and help, I can feel this monster, this monster. Oh no, there was an explosion and a power outage. Fortunately, we have a laptop. As soon as the hotspot is turned on, we can surf the internet. Please subscribe to help Bulletin you calm down, the bang is so scary. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 448. Suddenly, the voice transmitted by Lord Wei Shi's brainwave power spread throughout the hearing organs of all the monsters present. He is still hiding his strength. The most powerful person, Basilisk Wei Shi, had a slight tremor in the sound of brainwave power. Wei Shi couldn't help but tremble. He had already discovered before that, although Jia Yan looked extremely panicked when he was surrounded by other powerful people in the Golden Desert, he could tell by his ability to dodge the attacks time and time again, and even explode occasionally. The strong man they faced was definitely hiding his strength. But at the time, Wei Shi didn't take it seriously at all. After all, his title of number 1 in Jin Mo was not just a name for nothing, but was earned through countless battles. He also believed that if he did it himself, the other party would never be able to be so calm again. He thinks he can defeat the opponent. But not long after he started, he made a surprising discovery. First of all, after his explosion, the opponent also exploded in strength, which he expected. He believed that even if the opponent exploded with strength, he was no match for him. After playing for a while, he found that he was a little tired. He felt that even so, as long as he worked harder, he might still be able to defeat it. No matter how bad things are, you can still draw with the opponent. He was so sure that the snake body kept flying, a long snake body, like a giant dragon flying in the sky. They collided with each other one after another, causing the strong monsters watching the battle to look frightened. However, as the battle got longer and longer, the confident Basilisk Wei Shi finally discovered a doubt during the battle, and his expression changed drastically. He found that the powerful opponent in front of him didn't have much fighting feeling at all when fighting him. Wei Shi has too much combat experience. So many that he no longer remembers how many opponents he has fought. But this is the first time an enemy has such an expression in battle. This kind of demeanor is definitely not that of a person who is fighting a life and death battle. He keenly discovered that the other party's expression seemed to be just experiencing his attacks again and again. In the subsequent attacks, the other party would even involuntarily bring out the moves of him, the strongest man in the Golden Desert. This guy. Not fighting at all, but learning. Learn from his combat experience as the strongest man. And moves. Wei Shi understood immediately, even though the other party seemed to have exploded in strength, even to the extent that he was on par with him, but he actually still hasn't shown his true strength until now. So at this time, he yelled out in panic, asking other powerful people from the Golden Desert to come and help him. Even if it's a siege, he still has to kill the monster in front of him that scares him. Strangling directly here. Wei Shi couldn't imagine that as a strong man who had reached the peak of heaven level, there was actually a strong man at this time who was still fighting with him while hiding his strength when facing him. He is already at the peak of heaven level, so what level is the other party at? Wei Shi couldn't imagine it anymore. If this flying monster really breaks through the heavenly level. If you reach this planet, or even the scope of the star field is basically equal to the supreme starry sky level. Then it is impossible for their team to win. There is no possibility of victory at all. This monster did not dare to imagine that the opponent was really of the level he thought it would be. At this time, it only caused other powerful monsters to swarm forward one by one. At the same time, his attacks were like raindrops. Attack the huge flying monster ahead fiercely. Have you noticed it yet? This is a good opponent. Unfortunately, his opponent is too different from my basic strength. Jia Yan noticed that the opponent in front of him suddenly changed his style of play, and he immediately smiled. Because he knew the huge python in front of him. I finally realized his true strength. At the same time, he was also a little regretful. From this opponent, he had already learned many strong fighting methods. Jia Yan felt that if he could fight with him for a while, his gains would be greater. Unfortunately, the opponent's combat experience was too strong. At this time, he had actually noticed his hidden strength, and had even begun to call his friends. Call your friends and make those strong monsters around you stand by and watch, come and attack from a flank. The powerful monsters who were watching one by one came fiercely one after another. There was a sparkle in Jia Yanfu's eyes. He knew that he could no longer continue playing. After all, each of the powerful Jin Mo men in front of him was not that scary to Jia Yan individually, but when they were all gathered together, it was a bit scary. Tricky. Especially since the opponent also has a giant python monster with extraordinary combat experience and strength. Jia Yan doesn't know that the opponent is the strongest person in the Golden Desert, but he just knows that this opponent is really not simple. With the current strength level, it is absolutely impossible to defeat so many opponents. Jia Yan had no choice but to see a different light flash in his eyes. Anyway, he has almost perfected his fighting strength. 70% strength, show it. Buzz. An invisible transparent film appeared in front of Jia Yan. I saw the first flying life form that attacked Jia Yan, and its sharp front beak suddenly froze. After that, it discovered that not only its front beak, but also its own body could not move. In 1/100th of a second, the monster realized something was wrong, but by now it was already too late to get away. All powerful life forms could only see a vague black shadow, like a thunder, streaking quickly through the air. Phew! The flying monster that looked like a bird had an expression of teeth that were about to burst. He was horrified to find that a dark, sharp object pierced his chest, destroying his constantly beating core internal organs. He could feel that his vitality was quickly disappearing. Die! Just as the bird monster was attacked by Jia Yan, stabbing his body to the core, a powerful and heavy hammer appeared behind him like lightning and flint. The giant hammer hit, and its owner was the turtle shell monster Master Kaki. This monster was at this time. He was absolutely confident in his attack. After all, the other party was attacking one of his comrades, and he had already targeted this opportunity. How could the opponent avoid an attack from behind? Buzz. Once again, the vague sound that all enemies had noticed before suddenly appeared in the air. Master Kaki only felt that his body suddenly froze. The giant hammer handed out in front seemed to be frozen. Can't move at all. Is this? His eyes widened with a look of horror. How could there be such terrifying brainwave power? Wei Shi, the giant python who was taking a break on the side, was also extremely shocked at this time. He understood that the other party must have hidden his strength before, but he never expected that the other party's hidden strength was actually so terrifying, even to a point that he couldn't even imagine. Although I don't want to be at the starry sky level, but just look at such terrifying brainwave power. Even if you compare it to the starry sky level, it's not far behind. Wei Shi finally had a bad feeling in his heart. As an existence that has almost reached the peak of the sky level, this is the first time that I feel that I am not the peak. Above this, there are actually strong people between the sky level and the starry sky level? Is there something wrong with the classification of grades that I know about? Wei Shi became a little confused. Even now, the strongest man in the Golden Desert doesn't believe it at all. The opponent will be a real starry sky level monster. He couldn't even imagine that the other party was only using 70% of his strength even now. He, the most powerful person watching, all looked like this, let alone Lord Kaki, who was immobilized by the power of Jia Yan's brain waves. This monster's eyes were filled with disbelief, and it was about to struggle desperately. But a sharp needle from the opponent's mouthparts has already been sprayed out. The arrival of this needle made this strong man panic. Although he was not the strongest among this group of monsters, his status was no lower than that of Na Wei Shi. He is the envoy of the #1 hidden force in the Golden Desert. And that hidden force is the Red Tower civilization that can be compared with the Asta civilization and the biochemical empire. There is such a strong backend. This monster dares to kill himself. How can it be? The self-comfort look in Mr. Kaki's eyes has not subsided yet, and the needle that stabbed him has already made a soft crisp sound. Pass through. A pool of blood flowed down Master Kaki's eyes, where the Jia Yankao needle had penetrated. In addition to blood, brain matter also rolled out. This self-proclaimed messenger with a high status cannot die anymore. Even from beginning to end, Jia Yan didn't know his identity, let alone wanted to know. On this planet, he has fought with even the official representative of the biochemical empire, the diplomat. Does he still care about the Red Tower civilization on the gray-yellow star that does not have strong combat power? Not to mention that Jia Yan didn't know what the Hungta civilization was. Even if he knew it, he wouldn't care at all. His road is destined to be paved with blood. After killing 2 opponents in a row, the excitement in Big Mosquito's compound eyes became even more intense. If the monsters around him were careful enough, they would find that the move he used to stab Master Kaki with a mouth needle was something he had perfected while dodging battles with so many monsters. So many strong monsters gave him great opportunities to feed his moves. As a result, Jia Yan strengthened and formed each of his ideas and moves during these times. Sure enough, the first time I used the mouth needle as a killing move, it worked. The sparkle in Jia Yan's eyes was extremely fierce. He felt that the best way to repay these monsters was to use the moves he had practiced before to kill them one by one. Only then would these powerful creatures help him. Very busy. When? Just after killing Master Kaki, the Big Mosquito used his not very flexible midfoot to directly block an incoming arrow. The arrow was still very powerful, but it had no effect on the mosquito, which had activated 70% of its strength. Send it back to you. Jia Yan's brainwave power caught the arrow, and then kicked it hard with his middle foot. The arrow actually flew back in the direction it came from at an even more terrifying speed than when it came. The shooting monster didn't have any time to dodge. He didn't even think that the opponent could counterattack so quickly after resisting his own arrows. Phew. Jia Yan's ability to control the middle foot is not strong, such a brutal attack. There was still a slight deviation, and after a sound like piercing brocade silk, the arrow penetrated the monster's abdomen. The force was so terrifying that after it shot through his body, he flew into the sky and instantly turned into a stream of light, disappearing into the sky like a shooting star. Escape. That long-range shooter monster. At this time, I finally understood that I was waiting for the strong man from Jin Mo. What a terrifying guy they encountered. This guy was not something they could possibly fight against. All this time, this guy was just teasing himself and waiting for the monster. As a shooter, the intuition of this life form is extremely strong. After the injury to the abdomen, he immediately discovered that the opponent was simply enjoying the battle and was just learning and playing. He might even be. Until now, he has not shown his true strength. The shooter monster's eyes showed an extremely frightened light, and his brainwave power came into play. Regardless of the horrific injury to his abdomen, he retreated towards the rapids to the rear. Jia Yan saw the other parties escape, but so what? Even if he escapes, he will chase the opponent to his lair and kill him. Monster here today. As well as the forces behind them, Jia Yan wants to kill them all. Sulfuric acid. A spark of gold and iron splashed out, lighting up in the air, and then the head of a powerful monster fell down. This is another powerful attack method that Jia Yan can use after this mutation. That is, he cut his already very sharp forefoot into a knife-shaped horn. Simply transform it into a sharp long knife. From then on, the knife-shaped horns on his front feet, in addition to being able to stab, were also extremely handy for cutting without fierce confrontation. At this time, I tried my best to test my skills, and as expected, I cut off the entire head of a 20-meter large monkey-like monster and sent it flying. Blood-splattered Laogao? It's fun. This is the kind of battle that's interesting. The icy look in Jia Yanfu's eyes and the killing intent that seemed to be overflowing seemed to have reached their peak. A crazy battle that had never been attempted on this planet finally broke out. Jia Yan is like a fighting maniac who has been imprisoned for a long time. At this time, he finally has no worries. He switches to the battle killing mode and naturally wants to have a good killing battle. Phew. 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 With 70% of his power activated, Jia Yan's body was extremely fast and terrifying. He launched a series of attacks, some of which were able to kill the opponent, while others caused the enemy to dodge due to his carelessness. Kill, kill, kill. As a cold-blooded life form, Jia Yan's expression was extremely cold. At this time, under the killing, his coldness was revealed in his expression, making the surrounding air seem to freeze. What makes people feel even more chilling is the horrific killing scene that looks like hell. Huge and powerful monsters seem to be dropping dumplings in the sky at this time, losing their lives one by one and falling downwards. And their life breath had completely disappeared while they were in mid-air. Each of these monsters is equivalent to the top 10 strongest people in the Golden Desert. Which one of them is not a high-ranking, emperor-like existence above 10,000 people? But at this time, they were all like little soldiers, and were all killed by the powerful strength of the arrogant giant Mosquito. Jia Yan killed with great pleasure. This is the first time that he has encountered so many powerful enemies, and during this period, he has verified countless attack and defense plans that may be of great use to him in the future. It can be said that fighting is a pleasure, and killing is also a pleasure. Escape. This monster is completely invincible. The giant python Wei Shi had completely lost his courage at this time. He had previously thought that even if this monster was powerful, it would be impossible for them to be their opponent if they joined forces. But now, he didn't know that the other party was not at all. They are on this level. It's hard to say whether it's Starry Sky level, but even if it's not, it's completely impossible for him to defeat him. The strongest man in the Golden Desert, now filled with fear, quickly shot towards the back, and his body was about to rush towards the sand. He also had 2 huge scars on his body. That was when he and a monster with 2 heads launched a joint attack on Jia Yan, but they missed the target and were hit by Jia Yan's wings. With one blow, the head of the 2-headed monster was directly snapped off by the powerful wings of the big Mosquito, and he was left with 2 huge injuries as if he had been crushed by a steamroller. In the battle group above their heads, there were only 2 unlucky guys left who wanted to escape, but were trapped by the terrifying brainwave power of the big Mosquito. The other existences, except for the strongest man in the Golden Desert, were the escaped shooter monsters. Puchi, Puchi. Just when Wei Shi was about to reach the sandy ground, he only heard 2 consecutive small explosions above his head. When he was distracted, he suddenly trembled. The terrifying monster high in the sky had already killed the last 2 powerful alliance men with one blow. When he looked at it, the opponent's huge compound eyes seemed to contain ice. Already turning in his direction. The murderous aura contained in the compound eyes has reached its peak and can almost freeze his entire body. Run away, run away. Wei Shi accelerated his speed. Fortunately, he was not far from the sand. In the next moment, he had already plunged into the yellow sand. Phew. This monster is like a monster that can swim in the sand. It pounces and swims towards the depths of the sand. In an instant, it penetrated to a depth of almost 30 meters. At the same time, he only felt a fierce force above his head, passing through the layers of sand, fiercely pressing in the direction where he was. Sure enough, the power that exploded cannot be repaired so quickly. The laptop and tablet took over and finally finished writing this chapter. I hope you will call me tomorrow, otherwise I will have to find a solution. 5555, Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 449. At the same time, Wei Shi felt a fierce force above his head, passing through the layers of sand, fiercely pressing in the direction where he was. Sand, stop me. The giant python's teeth were about to burst, and a trace of blood spilled from its bloody mouth. An earth-shattering sound sounded behind him. At this moment, Wei Shi felt that the back of his body was completely torn apart by the violent force. Blood splattered, and he didn't care about his injuries at all, and burrowed into the sand even more fiercely. You must know that he is a strong man who grew up as a sand snake, and drilling in the sand has always been his ancestors' profession. He quickly burrowed downwards, and finally penetrated about 70 to 80 meters in one breath. Only then did the most powerful monster finally heave a sigh of relief. Drilling 70 or 80 meters into the sand, even the powerful weapons of those alien civilizations would be difficult to kill him in one breath. After all, Wei Shi's defense is also extremely strong, and with the buffer of the sand, he cannot be killed. He is also normal. And Jia Yan, who was outside the sand, had a shining light in his compound eyes. Surrounding him were the corpses of huge monsters. At this moment, due to the continuous killings and the battle to liberate his strength, he seemed to recall those previous battles, and at the same time, the coldness in his heart also disappeared. A stronger feeling. Against the backdrop of the corpses around them, it felt like the sand was filled with ice as the strong wind blowing from Huhu Mountain. The shooting monster that escaped before was just a weak monster and was seriously injured, but this basilisk is definitely the most powerful among this group of monsters. If you escape, there will be countless hidden dangers in the future. Jia Yan just thought about it for a moment, and there was a look of decision in his compound eyes that flashed with thinking. He decided that he couldn't let this monster escape. In this case, let you see my true strength. Even I don't know how powerful my true strength is. As Jia Yan finished speaking these words, the violent wind blowing in the surrounding air seemed to be stagnant. An indescribable aura emerged from the sand covered with corpses. The invisible force began to wreak havoc on Jia Yan's huge body, and the indescribable feeling of terror made not only the air around him stagnant, but even the gravel that was constantly dancing in the air due to the battle also froze in mid-air. If you look down from a high place, you will find that time seems to have stopped here. Everything around is so quiet. Even the sound of the wind has become silent when it reaches this place. The basilisk Wei Shi, who was more than 80 meters below the ground, seemed to feel something at this time. He is panting, and as long as he regains a little strength, he will leave as quickly as possible. But at this time, he finally felt that the monster above his head seemed not to let him go. An indescribable powerful feeling gradually rose from the sky above his head. This. Wei Shi's breath began to stir. At this time, he felt that the 70 or 80 meters of sand that gave him a sense of security was not safe at all. Continue down. He forced himself to use all his strength and drilled deeper into the ground. The surrounding gravel is constantly being pushed away by huge snake heads. This monster feels extremely regretful for participating in this strong hunt. You must know that as the true strength of Jin Mo, he can completely decide his own actions. It is impossible for those so-called forces and strong men to command him. But why did I get so excited when I heard there was a so-called strong man here? Want to meet a strong man who can fight against you? Okay, now I see it, but what I see is not a strong man who can compete with myself, the strongest man, but a strong man who completely crushes me. He was extremely depressed in his heart, and he wished he could pull out the dead turtle shell monster Master Kaki and whip his body 100 times. Boom 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 boom. He dived quickly, and finally, the monster felt that he had dived at an extremely fast speed and had reached more than 150 meters underground. The sand here was hard and heavy. He thought, even if the monster above launched a powerful attack, it would be impossible for him to be seriously injured, right? The opponent is a flying monster, and the shape of its body is destined to make it impossible to move quickly in the sand and mud. Did you escape deeper? Above the sand, Jia Yan's strength gradually increased. This was the first time since his mutation that he showed his full strength. At this time, he felt the violent energy in his body, and he was secretly stunned. Maybe I still made a misjudgment about my own strength, that is, at this time, his strength is definitely much stronger than what I thought before. The solidification of the surrounding gravel was just the fluctuation of brainwave power that Jia Yan unconsciously emitted, causing them to freeze. At this time, Jia Yan finally had a clear understanding of his own strength. Whirring. His wings began to flap slightly. The surrounding wind noise began to gradually increase. The panting Wei Shi below, the dangerous feeling in his heart that is unique to the strong, finally appeared again. Even this time, it was even more intense than before. What? How is it possible that when I'm in such deep sand, he can still pose a fatal threat to me? The basilisk Wei Shi was startled at this time, but presumably other monsters, he would not dwell on the idea of whether the other monster could pose a threat to him at this time, but with a single movement, his body would continue to drill down fiercely. You are a flying monster, and your ability to evade the ground cannot be better than mine. If it doesn't work at 100 meters, I will go to 200 meters. If it doesn't work at 200 meters, I will go to 500 meters. I can go deep even 10 kilometers. It depends on you. Threaten me. It can be said that Wei Shi activated all his last strength. At this time, with the crazy drilling, his body instantly penetrated 200 meters below. Unexpectedly, when he arrived here, he actually noticed an extremely terrifying murderous intention, and it locked onto him fiercely. As I said before, the crisis consciousness of powerful life forms is not very mysterious. They just receive some signals from the external organs of their bodies, and then without analysis, it is directly caused by instinct in the minds of these life forms. A terrible crisis response, this is the source of crisis awareness. At this time, Jia Yan was in the sky, condensing the surrounding air. Under such circumstances, how could Wei Shi below not know that the other party could still pose a great threat to him? Just when it wants to continue drilling downwards. Bang! The threat from above finally broke out in one breath. Jia Yan was above the sand at this time, and his vibrating wings suddenly vibrated violently. The surrounding air almost rang with a huge shockwave like the explosion of a cannonball. A shockwave visible to the naked eye spread out to the surroundings, causing gravel to fly in the sand. The stumps and severed arms of countless monsters were also swept by the wind. It was simply terrifying. At the same time, he also used his brainwave power crazily, pushing his body hard into the sand below. What a powerful force! During the fall, Jia Yan's compound eyes shone brightly. His strength at this time made him look incredible. An extremely huge monster, in the dark night, was like a cannonball, hitting the sand hard. Boom 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 boom. Jia Yan's full power was simply unbelievable. At this time, under the ground, Wei Shi's expression finally changed wildly. Not good. What flashed in his cold snake eyes was no longer coldness, but a kind of humanized fear. The ground shook in the sand, and an unparalleled force attacked his direction at a speed that reached more than 20 times the speed of sound on Earth. The unprecedented strong sense of life and death crisis made Wei Shi unleash his full potential. A strange light flashed at the front of his snake body. This light was the power of brain waves. The previous injuries caused this monster to have brain waves. His strength was in a state of scarcity, but in this life and death crisis, he didn't care about getting more injured. He just used all his strength crazily, causing his body to dive downward crazily. As a natural burrower, he believed that his talent for burrowing would make it impossible for him to be slower than that flying monster. Boom 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 boom. Wei Shi's speed also broke through more than 10 times the speed of sound in an instant. This speed was extremely shocking when drilled into the ground. However, he found that the speed at which the behemoth behind him approached him still showed no stagnation. Even after he fully exploded his power, he seemed to speed up his pursuit even more. Ah! How could this happen? Wei Shi finally couldn't help it and roared crazily. But his voice suddenly stopped midway through his roar. A long, ferocious leg seemed to fall from the sky, fiercely drilled out of the ground, and pierced 7 inches of his body. Boom 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 boom. Under the ground more than 400 meters deep, this giant python made a huge roll before death. This roll even caused the surface of the sand more than 400 meters high to produce waves that were like ocean waves, undulating. Extremely scary. But no matter how this powerful creature rolled, the sharp forefoot nailed to its body just refused to relax, and there was no possibility of even causing him any setbacks. Jia Yan observed the powerful creature in front of him indifferently. If it was powerful, the basilisk he encountered might be the most powerful thing except the white life form, which was the diplomat of the biochemical empire. However, it is completely impossible for such a strong man to have the slightest backhand against his mutated self. Jia Yan even believed that if he had used all his strength from the beginning, there might only be 1 or 2 existences of this level. It's just a matter of meeting face to face. Now even though he is more than 400 meters underground, he is actually extremely smooth. The power of his brainwaves alone can push away all the sand and gravel in front of him, and even dive into the sand. The speed of the ground. Even Jia Yan himself was a little surprised. Not long after, the giant snake's rolling finally slowly stopped. During this period, he also wanted to use his huge snake body to wrap Jia Yan's body, or even strangle him to death, but Jia Yan just looked at him quietly, even if the snake's body wrapped around him, and the big mosquito didn't feel the slightest discomfort. Before dying, this giant snake finally sent out its last terrifying wave, and asked in disbelief. Could it be, Xin Kong? Before he finished speaking, his vitality had been completely extinguished. In front of Jia Yan, who has turned on his full energy, this so-called strongest man in the Golden Desert is completely unsatisfactory. Boom 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 boom. The earth cracked, countless gravels flew, and a huge dark life form seemed to return from the depths of the earth and slowly flew up. He was holding a huge python on his middle foot, but in the foot of this flying monster, the python had no trace of life and was obviously dead. Jia Yan threw the python aside and piled it up with the corpses of many powerful people in the Golden Desert. Then it takes off. Not far outside the battle area, a faint black spot floating in the sky hovered there. This little black dot is not tall. Compared with those monsters that can easily reach 10 or 20 meters, it even looks a little thin. This is a woman armed to the teeth. She was wearing tight-fitting armor, and the shoulders of the armor were cracked, revealing a piece of white and crystal-clear shoulders. It is this girl named Daifuni. At this time, her arms were naturally drooping, and between her palms, she tightly held the unique weapon she used, a magnetron gun similar to a giant pistol. She watched Jia Yan flying slowly from a distance, and her originally solemn expression changed into a faint smile. This woman's curvy and graceful figure exudes a powerful heroic spirit in the dark night. Just by looking at this figure, you can tell that she is a woman who cannot be outdone by men. When Jia Yan saw her fully armed, an unexpected look flashed in his compound eyes. Solved. Daifuni stepped forward and looked at the big mosquito for a few times. Then she looked at the scene of an earth-shaking battle behind her with a look of shock on her face. Solved. These dozen strong men are not ordinary. They may not be small players in this desert. Jia Yan still spoke in his low and hoarse baritone. It's definitely not ordinary. I'll have my men come over and take care of their bodies later, and we'll know their identities. Daphne nodded. Jia Yan looked at the opponent's fully armed appearance again, and finally nodded. You didn't think of running away because of a battle of this level, but you wanted to join the fight. That's great, he said lightly. Daphne was stunned when she heard this, and then the curve of the corner of her mouth became even more beautiful. She didn't know what was going on. After feeling the fluctuations of the battle before, she just wanted to come over and help. Although she hesitated for a moment when she saw the terrifying battle scene ahead, she still flew over as fast as she could. But by the time she used her not-so-powerful brainwave power to make herself fly here, the battle was over. The big mosquito was indeed terrifying. It had already dealt with so many powerful opponents and was completely solved. Daphne knew that for those dead guys, even if they were one-on-one, she would only be tortured and killed. But he was still solved neatly by the big mosquito. This made Daphne even more confident, thinking that the big mosquito at this time was definitely a starry sky-level existence. There was a strange sparkle in her eyes. "I'm sorry, my previous calculation was wrong. I didn't expect that these forces couldn't bear it for even 20 days, not to mention 20 days, not even 5 days. I was wrong in my calculation." Flying towards the Earth convoy with Jia Yan, Daphne shook her head and smiled bitterly. The plan she made before was to estimate that all those forces would have a time lag between observing and investigating the newly emerged place of Earth City. There would be an observation period of at least 20 days before it would be possible to take action against them. Her judgment is not unfounded. In the Grey Star, among the various forces, there are probably some more powerful alien forces relying on them. There are even some forces that are simply supported by a certain civilization. If they are not be careful of offending those civilizations. On this planet, only the two major warring countries may not be afraid. Some of these powerful forces have their own warships outside the planet, and even warring countries may have some concerns. So the reason she reasoned was that in the face of the emerging existence of Earth City, those forces had to investigate it no matter what, and judge that they were not a force supported by a powerful civilization before they could take action. But I never expected that the forces in the Golden Desert would so easily conquer their Earth City. When Jia Yan saw that this woman had made such a miscalculation, he felt relieved. When dealing with this woman in the past, he always felt that she had a good mind, but this time her determined strategy was also miscalculated, which made Jia Yan feel relaxed. He knew that the other party was not that smart, so he asked Chiyuan at this time. He became less fearful. "It's okay, the plan can't keep up with the changes. Since they want to fight, let's start." A more bloodthirsty light flashed in Jia Yanfu's eyes. Today's battle made his passionate fighting feelings that had not appeared for a long time reappeared. At this moment, he became belligerent. "After you confirm the identities of these strong men, you can send out teams to wipe out their forces. Don't let go of the forces passing by along the way. Those who are willing to hand over materials and money will be fine. Those who are not willing will be crushed along the way. Press on. This time we are famous teachers." Daphne looked at Jia Yan, her mouth opened, as if she wanted to say something. She wanted to say, would such an exaggerated action push herself into a desperate situation too quickly? But when the words came to her lips, she couldn't say anything. In fact, things have already begun to evolve. Even if Earth City does nothing, it is obvious that Jia Yan killed so many people tonight that he is not an unknown person. In the future, Jin Mo and even the entire Grey Star will inevitably, they will pay serious attention to their Earth City. The power grid was finally repaired today. Thank you for your support and subscription, thank you. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin Yu. Chapter 450. Under the intense attention from the outside world, the identity of the giant mosquito evolved beast may even be easily guessed by those forces. The most ominous situation is that what Daphne told the Rulan Empire about the shocking discovery of gravitational waves might be revealed. You know, that is a huge discovery that may change the course of current interstellar civilization. At that time, Earth City might really be surrounded by enemies. So what Jia Yan does now is a very correct decision. Daifune discovered that she was different from Big Mosquito. She had a wealth of experience and knowledge, but her intuitive ability for battles and situations was still slightly inferior to that of Big Mosquito, who started out as a fighter. Okay. Let's do it first. Thinking of this, she finally accepted Jia Yan's order unconditionally. Tonight, she showed in front of Jia Yan that she didn't have much selfishness. After all, as a woman who was scrupulous about Jia Yan, she was able to step forward to help during the war without thinking about other things. This is commendable. So it is foreseeable that Jia Yan will have less scruples about her and will treat her as a true confidant. After all, Jia Yan doesn't have anyone he can trust now. He didn't care about Earth City from the beginning, so if Daifune wants power, he won't hesitate to give it to her. The two flew towards the Earth convoy. With such a terrible war happening outside, how could Earth City not notice it? At this time, all the living beings in the city were looking at the terrible explosion outside, and they were extremely frightened. Regarding the force they belong to, the life forms of Earth City have already established a position, that is, they are the force destined to fight fiercely from all directions in the future. After all, judging from the plans set by Jia Yan and Daifune, many people can understand that the two most powerful leaders of this force are following the path of killing and decisiveness. But no one could have imagined that the battle would come so quickly. What about the promised 20 days? A noodle-like guy was standing outside the house built for senior personnel in Earth City, looking at the battle scene over there with a very solemn expression. He knew that the person fighting over there was not someone who had nothing to do with Earth City. It was very likely that he was the assassin lord whom they had always regarded as a god. I don't know what kind of existence is coming, but the person fighting them must be the assassin. If the assassin can't survive this level, then our Earth City will end here. Thinking of this, the noodle man's eyes flickered secretly, and his eyes were focused on a recently built building in Earth City. That's where he usually manages. What others don't know is that it's where the most supplies are located in the entire Earth City. Noodle Man even knows that some of the important supplies that are easy to carry are also there. If the Earth City collapses, then he must go there and carry the valuable materials he can carry, so that he can live a good life in the future. He even chose his own way out. In fact, there are not a few life forms who think like Noodle Man, and some of them are even like him, high-level beings who were urgently promoted by Earth City. It can be seen that Earth City, this new force, is not a popular force. The main reason why it quickly became a huge force is to rely on threats and powerful force. If the assassin, who represents the most powerful force, fails in this night battle, naturally no one will remain loyal to him. There is only one monster, probably the one who is most sincere and confident about the Big Mosquito in Earth City. That is Ulus, this frogman. In recent days, his power has tended to become more and more marginalized. Nowadays, the nominal general manager only manages peripheral things, which makes many former Ulus, the members of the Max team, felt a little unwilling for him. But Ulus himself didn't have too many ideas. Everything recently made him realize that the master plan of Earth City was done by Miss Daphne. The gap between him and Miss Daphne was also too big. Now he has a satisfactory idea about everything. After all, as the general manager of Earth City, no one will underestimate him even if he does not have much power. The battle over there must be the assassin. Alus also looked into the distance through the darkness. What they don't know is that the assassin may be an evolved beast. This kind of life form has fought against everything in the world since ancient times. In the battle over there, the assassin will definitely win. Alus looked over there, and although there was a slight turbulence in his heart, he still had great confidence in the battle over there. The sharp-eyed life form had previously seen the absolute number 2 figure in this Earth City, Miss Delphine, from a distance, dressed neatly in combat equipment, heading in the distant direction of the battle. Fly away. It can be seen that the battle there is definitely related to Earth City. Just here in Earth City, Due to the fluctuations caused by the distant war, the situation has not yet completely fermented. The sound of fighting in a distant place actually stopped for a moment. There are no more battle fluctuations, as if everything has returned to calm. No one knows how the battle is going, and no one knows whether the assassin won or the enemy won. The senior officials of Earth City are also fully prepared. Whether they will welcome the return of the two adults or escape from the enemy, it all depends on what happens next. Those are, two adults. Suddenly, outside the prototype of the city, those life forms acting as lookouts used night vision equipment to see the figure approaching in the distance. The words he shouted calmed the impetuous people. The winner is indeed the assassin. That's right, Lord Assassin, but in that building, just using your own brainwave power, you can easily deal with a few top 20 strong beings. Even if a top 10 being comes tonight, Lord Assassin, you might as well win. The Noodle Man looked at the building where supplies were stored not far away. He seemed unwilling and relieved to give up his next action. As a life form in the Golden Desert, at this time, he still attaches great importance to a powerful force, because in this place of the Golden Desert, it is not that you can live well if you have money and materials. If you do not have matching strength, even if he stole valuables from Earth City, he would probably use them as dowry for others in the future. This is also the thought of several other high-level life forms. Master Assassin and Master Daphne are back. Every life form in Earth City has recovered from the shock caused by the previous battle. They feel sincerely happy that the winner is the strong man on their side. Although most life forms in this Earth City are still captured, some recent measures in Earth City have given them a sense of belonging to this emerging strength, especially those who have contributed to the construction of the city. And the life forms who received the amnesty have a different feeling for the city. Now there is another battle, and the two adults are still back, so the result of the battle is self-evident. Jia Yan and Daifuni were flying slowly in the desert, and the city with little sparks in front of them gradually appeared in front of them. Neither of them spoke anymore, just looking at the city scenery in front of them. This city covers an area of more than 10 square kilometers, which can be said to be the size of a large city on Earth. There are sparks everywhere, and in this boundless night, thousands of lights and neon lights are very beautiful. This scenery cannot be seen on Earth. Jia Yan looked there and suddenly made a voice. Daphne was startled. As she was flying, the unique breeze of the sand swept past her. Brushing up her fiery red hair, she has a refreshing charm. You can't see the Earth, but this is also our city. Isn't it? Daphne responded. Jia Yan was silent for a moment. The city ahead was already at his feet. Jia Yan listened to the cheers below, then looked at the unreal crowd of life forms below, and finally held back a few words. You're right, this is our city too. Go ahead and do it. I will protect the safety of the city. After he said this, he shot forward. Daifuni watched the big Mosquito descending towards her own parliament hall, the curve of the corner of her mouth becoming more and more charming. She knew that at this time, Big Mosquito had a little more recognition for Earth City. She landed. Miss Daphne, was the fight just now caused by you? How is the assassin? A group of high-level life forms swarmed up. The tiny Daifuni seemed to have become an ant among a group of monsters several meters high. She was trapped on the ground and could hardly move. Don't mess around. The previous battle was indeed between the assassin and the intruder. Daphne spoke up to stop the commotion of the monsters, and the beings quickly became quiet. Daphne looked at the monsters around her and smiled lightly. Okay, the battle over there is over. Naturally, Lord Assassin has won a great victory. You will send your team there later. Take care of the harvest. After all, the flesh and blood of those strong men are still extremely valuable. After Daifuni said all this, the surrounding life forms suddenly burst out into joyful laughter. Although they all knew that the Mosquito and Daifuni had returned before, they were naturally defeated. Only when Defuni told the answer personally did they what a real relief. Not long after, a small convoy of less than 100 vehicles left Earth City and arrived at the location where the shocking battle had taken place. This is a life form that Kankan got out of the car and wanted to perform an autopsy was stunned when he saw the huge corpses on the ground. Isn't this the sixth strongest man in the Golden Desert, Master Bazi? I have seen his face from a distance back then. This, the third strongest person, Lord Geca. How is that possible? The body of Lord Wei Shi, the strongest man in the Golden Desert and the uncrowned king, is also there. Were these all done by the assassin, and one against many? So how powerful is the assassin? Oh, God! The alien life forms in Earth City who collected the corpses were all dumbfounded. Those legendary beings had all turned into corpses and fell in front of them. It is no wonder that these life forms were all stunned. After all, for them said that these so-called strong men of the Golden Desert are like myths. But these myths have now become corpses, and the person who killed them is actually the leader of the force they currently work for. Even the strongest, third strongest, and sixth strongest in Jinmo can be killed in one go, and even those other dead individuals don't seem to be that simple. So how powerful is their assassin? Earth City, is this going to go against the grain? Earth City, as if overnight, suddenly became the top power among the top powers. The reason for all this is their assassin. Okay, the trophies cleaned up by my men have been recovered. These corpses are not simple things. As powerful men, their special parts can be used to make armors and weapons. They are all important materials. Collect them carefully. For research purposes. Daphne was sitting in the simple hall of consciousness, which was a smaller building in which only the upper floors of a part of the current Earth City were gathered. Yes, one monster after another took her order. Compared with the previous situation, the orders issued by Defuni are now obeyed to the greatest extent even if Jia Yan is not present to back them up. After all, the result of the previous battle caused the high-level officials of Earth City who were present to completely change their mentality. If the former assassin was only a strong man comparable to the top 10 in their hearts, but now he has completely surpassed the so-called Jin Mo strong man. No one dares to imagine how powerful the assassin is. So even if he does not appear as Defuni's backing at this time, no one in Earth City dares to disobey Defuni's orders. After all, this woman looks like she is the spokesperson of the assassin. Okay, that's the talk of spoils of war, and then there are the arrangements for the future war. Daphne gently picked up a small piece of equipment in her hand. After clicking on the screen, a virtual projection 5 to 6 meters long and wide suddenly appeared in front of her. What is projected onto this map is a map of the entire Golden Desert, with dots and dots marking the location of numerous forces, large and small. After all, as a sudden rise of a huge force, under Defuni's purposeful arrangements, the entire power location in the Golden Desert is almost completely controlled by it. She looked at the light spots representing power above, and then looked at the life forms below. All the subordinates looked at the virtual light screen floating above their heads and held their breath, waiting for Daphne's next words. Perhaps they had already guessed what Delphine was going to say next. I have said before that I will give you 20 days to collect supplies, but the current situation in Jinmo no longer allows us to carry out such slow motion. I saw Daphne draw a circle, and on the light screen, a huge aperture appeared along the range of the Earth City. This huge aperture almost encompasses the entire Golden Desert. I need you now, fight me out. Within 5 days, carry out a quick attack on the area I have drawn, and all forces along the way will plunder supplies. You heard me right, it is not collecting, but plundering. Let me pay attention to the several forces here. There will be people equivalent to the top 20 strong men in the Golden Desert. What you have to pay attention to is not their counterattack, but pay attention to sending a message to the assassin before they escape. I don't want to if you die, surrender. The words spoken by Daphne had a sudden burst of heroic spirit, which made the surrounding high-level officials of the Earth racing team speechless for a long time. While strategies are being formulated here, in the meeting hall not far away. It is extremely quiet here, with almost no other buildings within 500 meters of it, because this is where the real leader of the entire Earth convoy, the assassin, the big Mosquito, known as the Lord Assassin, was gently crawling on the ground. He did not consume much energy in the previous battle, but he was still resting at this time. The big Mosquito's compound eyes had a slight light. He looked at the stars in the sky through the roof of the building above his head. The first difficulty has been overcome. But the next difficulties will only be more difficult. Especially the white life form that left. She belongs to the biochemical empire. The so-called starry sky class of the biochemical empire cannot be indifferent to me, right? He sighed and thought in his heart. In fact, for Jia Yan, all he wants to do is return to Earth. Before today, he was not very enthusiastic about the Earth city he created, at least compared to Daphne's enthusiasm. It's much worse. But after today's battle, he finally figured it out. Even if he could return to Earth and what about the future? He has long understood that the Earth has long been unable to provide any possibility of progress for a being like him. Only by traveling through enough places and obtaining enough materials can he continue to move forward and even become the legendary Starry Sky Beast. Then having a strong logistics force is a very necessary thing. Moreover, the way Daphne gradually behaved made Jia Yan understand that this time, this beautiful woman really had no objection to him anymore. In that case, could he consider, as he promised to Daphne before, truly protecting Earth City as a force, and then even helping it develop into a force that can bring convenience to him? Of course, Jia Yan just thinks about it this way. If there is any need now and he is asked to abandon this power, then he will definitely give up without any heartache. Even if Daphne, as long as she gives what she wants, it is not impossible for Jia Yan to abandon her. After all, the two parties did not have a deep friendship, or it could be said that they had always been dirty in the past. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 451. Haha, I'm just a cold-blooded animal, there's nothing I can't give up. Jia Yan knelt down gently again, laughing at himself in his heart. Even now, becoming the center of attention, the loneliness in his heart is still very strong. This feeling of loneliness that doesn't know when it will stop has long taken root in Big Mosquito's heart. Even he himself doesn't know how to resolve his loneliness. Such severe loneliness and pain sometimes even exceeded the mutated pain he experienced, almost worse than death. Fortunately, he is used to it. Just looking at the stars dotting the sky above his head, Jia Yan's compound eyes twinkled like the stars in the sky. He looked at them for a long time, as if he was crazy. In the strange and inexplicable forest land, a huge monster stepped out of a large open space on the ground. The trees underfoot completely collapsed, and the shock waves caused the ground to collapse. It was as if an unimaginable terrifying force was spreading in the surrounding area. This huge monster has a terrifying 50-meter body and a horn that rises into the sky. With his head held high, a powerful aura that showed no anger or self-power was automatically exuded. The powerful energy stirring all over his body was terrifying and earth-shattering. But in front of this huge monster, there is another life form. Compared with the huge horned monster in front of him, this life form looks completely different. He is only about 2 meters tall and has a head and feet. If people on Earth were here, they might think that this life form is just a tall man. Just people from Earth. But he is not from Earth. But an extremely powerful Asta-man. This Asta-man was wearing a completely protective armor. This armor was so terrifying that it covered his feet to his head, leaving only a pair of shining eyes exposed to the outside world. The man with this armor is also crazy powerful. He holds a steel gun in his hand. The long gun body is like a long metal dragon. The body is only a tenth of the size of the 50-meter monster in front of him, but he stood firmly in front of the opponent with no intention of retreating at all. Good. As expected of Asta the gunslinger. The Minotaur made a rough and wild sound, and a strange and domineering look flashed in his eyes. This is already the second day of fighting this famous gun god among the Asta people. The extremely powerful leader of the biochemical empire was actually resisted by a small Asta man for nearly 2 days. If this was revealed, it would definitely be huge news. But if you know the identity of this Asta man, it is not a strange thing. You must know that although the biochemical empire claims to be invincible in single combat, other civilizations naturally have powerful single warriors. As the strongest person in the biochemical empire in the gray-yellow star, the bullhorn monster can only rank below 100, maybe even hundreds, in the biochemical empire. However, the Asta man in front of him is ranked in the Asta empire. But he is already one of the 5 gods of war of the Asta people. He even believed that the other party did not use powerful weapons. If he did, he might have lost. Lord Ula, why did you suddenly leave the biochemical empire barracks? I came here this time to solve the problem of your army suddenly besieging the 6th city last time. I didn't expect to see you violating the ban again. You know, this is a violation of the regulations of war. The Asta man floating on the giant bullhorn spoke calmly. Even though his body was only a few tenths or even 100th of the size of the bullhorn, his demeanor and sense of oppression at this time were completely different from that of the bullhorn. Looking at each other with a look of disdain, even more faintly. Roar! The Minotaur roared. Cunning Asta man, I won't tell you. Come on, keep fighting. See how long you can stop me, the bullhorn roared, and then it charged towards the Asta gunman with huge forward inertia. Crash away. The Asta man's eyes suddenly changed. He also had a headache. This time he came to Grey and Yellow Star, but the Asta Empire assigned him to investigate the sudden siege of City Number 6 on Grey and Yellow Star by the Biochemical Empire. Although it was just an insignificant small city, it could trigger the Biochemical Empire to act like this. There must be some behind-the-scenes secret behind the great effort, so an Asta master like him was dispatched. What he didn't expect was that when he just arrived on this planet, he learned that the Biochemical Empire's only starry sky level on this planet was actually alone. It was definitely a huge doubt for an army commander to go out alone at this time, so without thinking much, he went out to fight and intercepted the enemy's leader. In a battle of this level, their strength is not much different, and it is related to all aspects of the 2 super empires behind them, so they both know that it is impossible to kill the opponent. They can defeat the opponent, or even seriously injure the opponent, but they cannot kill them. If killed, it might really be a full-scale war, so even at this time, both sides are still mainly testing. Unexpectedly, the first person to break the deadlock was the Minotaur. He roared and charged towards Asta Gunslinger. If you want to fight, I'm afraid you won't succeed. After all, as a starry sky level powerhouse and the best among them, Asta Gunslinger couldn't possibly show weakness. At this time, the battle finally changed from an initial trial to a strategic one. A heated confrontation. The fighting arrogance of the 2 super strong men continued to explode in the depths of the vast and boundless grey forest. During this battle, the ground was flattened, shock waves rippled, and even the super-large city Grey-Yellow Star City Number 5 100 kilometers away could feel earthquake-like fluctuations. No one knows what happened, and I believe no one wants to know what happened. After all, the 2 powerful empires at war actually had a star-level battle. This is not good news for this war planet. It is not yet known who will win in this battle, but we do know that after this, the Biochemical Empire and the Asta Empire, which were already at war, issued a series of condemnations and attacks on each other. The level of the two sides fighting suddenly changed. Moved up a level. Satsumadon, look at it, it's not that your dad didn't try hard, it's that he just can't do anything. In the dense land, a huge bullhorn monster was crawling on the ground. He had countless large and small wounds on his body. Some of the injuries were so terrible that the bones were even visible. Blood gurgled out from those wounds, which was simply terrifying. Standing in front of him was a white life form that was about 1 meter tall. At this time, the long eyelashes of the white life form were trembling, and the 3 long horns on the top of its head had crackling electric sparks shining from time to time. It was obviously in a terrible emotional instability. "Dad, please stop talking. It's too much for you to go out in person. I'll go there next time. That guy, I don't believe you can't bring him here." The white life form shook its head and made a sound of its own. A female voice with strong emotions. The giant bullhorn looked at his daughter attentively, and saw that her daughter's mood was not so stable, and it even showed in his expression. Looking at his daughter's slightly protruding abdomen, he couldn't help but sigh secretly. Should we let this little guy watch less Asta People's Media TV series in the future? She has a brain problem because of all the love-making stuff, the giant bullhorn thought helplessly in his heart. The Minotaur did not struggle with this matter for too long, and then continued to look up at the sky with a hint of emotion. The so-called Asta gunslinger didn't get any relief either. If I was seriously injured at 80%, he was at least 60%. If reinforcements from both sides hadn't arrived at that time, there's really no telling who would win and who would lose. Clear, thinking of this, the Minotaur's mood suddenly improved. After all, the Biochemical Empire is famous for being a fighting race in the Sea of Stars. He, the nameless commander stationed on the warring planet, actually fought fiercely with the Asta gunslinger for a long time, and the two sides were even forced to draw. This is another thing that makes people know this. The Starry Sky forces fighting have had a huge earthquake. Through this battle, they once again re-recognized the powerful single combat strength of the Biochemical Empire. The combat effectiveness of the individual soldiers of the Biochemical Empire has been improving. Although the extent of this improvement is not exaggerated, the potential is gradually being realized, making the Starry Sky kingdoms that were originally not too afraid of this new empire feel frightened. Another 2 days passed. Jia Yan didn't know that the Asta people's gun god had defended him against a terrifying Starry Sky level being. He is just expanding on the 1/3 of an acre of land he manages. He, the Jin Desert, really has a lot of power. You must know that Daifuni thought that she had a rough grasp of the forces in the Golden Desert, but after the actual battle, she discovered that those small forces were as numerous as a cow's hair. There were some well-known and unknown convoys and various forces. Everyone is standing in front of them. But for these forces, the Earth's army has only one approach: kill them and then unify them. Earth City is developing rapidly in an incredible way. There are too many hidden dangers in this kind of development. A large group of disloyal beings, even some spies, have joined Earth City and the Earth Army. Each of them wants to subvert Earth City. But Daphne doesn't care about this. All she wants is short-term fighting power. Speaking of it, her purpose and the big Mosquito are actually not much different, that is, to return to the Earth. Of course, after that, she will also have a usable Starry Sky. Power, that's the best. This is what Delphine has in mind now. Even the big Mosquito can see strong clues from her actions. Battle after battle, battle after battle. With the power of a powerful person, Daifuni will send a special person to hand over the coordinates there to Jia Yan, who is in charge of the Earth City. After that, all the people in the Earth City will be excited and surprised to see the huge meeting hall in the center of the Earth City. A majestic and huge figure soared into the sky, and rushed towards the location marked with the coordinates. It won't be long before they see the powerful assassin return again, and it won't even last more than half an hour. Within half an hour, it means that a powerful Jin MO expert will die or surrender. Such efficiency is simply unimaginable by any being in the entire Golden Desert. Earth City is crazy. The so-called assassin is also crazy. He thinks that because he is powerful, he can do whatever he wants on this planet. You must know that on the gray-yellow star, there are still 2 starry sky levels. No, together with the even more powerful gunslinger Asta, there are a total of 3 starry sky levels. There are even so many technological warships and technological weapons. He is such a powerful being that he thinks he can scale the sky. He is simply seeking death. No one knows how powerful the so-called assassin in Earth City is, but no one believes that this existence can reach the starry sky level. Among the starry sky level existences in the interstellar range, which one has not gone through a lot of hardships? Not only must their own genes be extremely powerful, but they must also go through countless life and death battles before they have a chance to reach the starry sky level. And I don't know. The flying monster appeared out of nowhere. I had never heard of its existence before, and it simply wanted to reach the starry sky level? That is simply impossible. Even if he is now at the peak of the heaven level, it only means that the genetic level of his body may be extremely powerful, but it is definitely not starry sky level. The starry sky level cannot be reached easily. Once it is reached, it will be earth-shatteringly powerful. This is a generally accepted knowledge in the Starfield civilization. If he had not reached the starry sky level, then this flying powerhouse would be nothing more than a clown. Now the gray-yellow star's starry sky level has not taken action, and those powerful battleships and weapons are not targeting Earth City. As long as they notice this crazy the monster, the Earth City will definitely be wiped out in an instant, without a burial place. Several mysterious and powerful monsters from the dense land in the Golden Desert gathered together again this day. What can be clearly seen is that the brainwave power that permeates the dense land has weakened a bit, and it seems that some of the strong ones have disappeared. It is recommended that we give up this Golden Desert for the time being and let's communicate with the beings behind us. Presumably the forces behind us don't want to see the interests of the Golden Desert being lost and the possibility of returning to this planet lost, so they will definitely take action. An old and powerful existence issued his own suggestions. Seconded. No comment. I also agree. I have seen the so-called assassin from a distance, and he is not a being that we can match. Let's give the high-level people behind us a headache. Not long after, in this dense land, powerful beings, like bolts of lightning, soared into the distance. These terrifying mysterious life forms actually chose to shrink their heads before colliding head-on with the big mosquitoes. Turtle, directly strategic retreat. In fact, it is not wrong to say that it is an escape. The Earth Army, like another storm after the Golden Desert storm, swept across the entire vast Golden Desert at a speed that even exceeded the imagination of any force or life form in the Golden Desert. Each chariot, whether it had just been captured or had existed in the past, was now all printed with the logo of Earth City, a round sky blue planet. No one knew where this planet was, they just knowing that this is the military emblem and Earth City emblem decided by Master Assassin and Master Defuni personally, no one dares to question it. These battle vehicles are of various shapes and forms, and they are rushing towards the outside world in an organized manner. Although the combat power may not be the most powerful in the Golden Desert, the reputation of the strong men in Earth City has swept the entire desolate desert in the Golden Desert. Countless alien beings are describing how terrifying the assassin is. For some teams that are about to encounter the Earth Army, before the battle, there will always be some who have ulterior motives, or are really refugees who have escaped from other places. Among those forces, they will promote the power of the Earth City's assassin. You must know the fierce battle that night, but several of the top 10 strongest men in the Golden Desert, including the number 1 strongman, the Basilisk Shi, all participated in the siege of the Assassin Lord, but they were still defeated by the extremely powerful assassin lord. The man strangled the entire team of strong men, and the assassin was not damaged at all. There were even living beings describing that the flying monster assassin might have reached the highest level of strong men in the entire starry sky level. With these propaganda that may have ulterior motives or are really unintentional life forms, countless forces were already heartbroken before the arrival of the Earth Army. The combat effectiveness displayed by the Earth Army was really not that strong. In some cases, the entire convoy fled halfway through the battle vehicle. But for those who dare to resist, powerful men will appear soon. At the beginning, the so-called assassins were often dispatched. However, after the battles ended and more strong men were subdued by force, some strong men who seemed to really want to be merged under the command of Earth City began to appear. Also started dispatching. ***. The crazy sweeping momentum of Earth City now, is also recognized by many powerful people. Although they have lost their own power, they still can't follow the powerful assassin and make a career. In order to make a pledge, these strong men, representing the Earth Army, separated into several groups and followed the Earth City Army, sweeping up everywhere. Under the secret competition, the progress and madness of the Earth Army made even the person in charge, Defuni, dumbfounded and extremely surprised. At this point, Earth City and the so-called Earth Army have finally gained momentum. Their madness is unparalleled. In the final analysis, this golden desert is just a medium-sized place in the gray-yellow star. When the Earth's army continues to wreak havoc in the golden desert, many superpowers from all walks of life are aware of it, but the conflict in the corner of the corner is, in their opinion, it is just a small fight. The eyes of those powerful forces are still watching the biochemical empire and the Asta Empire. 2 days have passed since the battle between the commander of the biochemical empire and the Asta gunslinger. The two empires are very angry. The spokespersons of both sides are constantly condemning each other, as if a war is imminent. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 452. Well, the chapter names have been a bit confusing in the past 2 days. This chapter finally rectifies the chaos and makes it clear. Thank you everyone for your support and subscription, thank you. All the forces know that if there is a super war between the two great empires, then it will be the moment when they can get their hands on the Grey Star. No one has the energy to care about the crazy force that suddenly appeared in the little golden desert. The high-tech materials we have collected are almost there, and we can try to start assembling and testing the equipment. When the Earth Army was wreaking havoc everywhere and it was on the 5th day of the Grey Star, a voluptuous woman with red hair and a charming face came to the Huangzhou Assembly Hall, which was nearly 100 meters high. The words that came out of her mouth made the big mosquito crawling on the spot flash with excitement. We finally have enough supplies for the gravitational wave transmission equipment. Jia Yan's heart was filled with joy. He and Daphne have done so much and taken so many risks, just for this thing. If it can be built quickly, although Defuni may have other ideas about Earth City and the Earth Army, for Jia Yan, being able to return to Earth is the only thing he wants to do most now. Hurry up and do it. If there are no scientific researchers you want in the desert, then try to find them in the big cities. No matter how high the cost, you have to find them. Jia Yan said this to Defuni. In order to be able to return to Earth, it is appropriate for him to make great efforts. At that time, he can ignore everything on this planet. I know. Defuni looked at Big Mosquito, and then there seemed to be some unfinished words in her eyes that she wanted to say, but seeing the impatient look on Big Mosquito's face, she finally didn't say anything. On the Earth City side, various materials were quickly collected, especially some technological equipment and metal materials. Some specific things were continuously transported to Huangzhou where Earth City was located. At this time, the Earth City began to undergo tremendous changes along the Yellow Continent. Due to the adjustment of Big Mosquito and Defuni, an unscrupulous style appeared, so the previous secretive approach was abandoned, and then vigorous efforts were made to develop the city. Construction, and some new people who continue to join, also continue to expand the city. The towns that were originally just inside Huangzhou became built according to Huangzhou. Specialized security teams also appeared. Chariots kept walking in the rough city. After all, the technology of aliens is not comparable to that of people on Earth, so this city, even though it is a rough-hewn place, it already has a considerable scale and format. The only thing that Daifuni has to do is to tax the merchants and ordinary people in a symbolic sense after the city is established. At this point, the city's management has finally become somewhat irregular. After all, many Daifuni have adapted to the management methods are all for people on Earth. At this time, the Earth city has different conditions and the life forms it manages are also different. Daifuni simply didn't care so much. She had a one-size-fits-all approach to the people she managed. Afterwards, a situation arose in Earth City, that is, the registered regular personnel of Earth City, as well as those who did not belong to Earth City. Those who were affiliated with Earth City were the members that Daifuni needed to manage. The captives after that were some workers. The rest are more recent outsiders. They can leave at any time. Of course, they can also join Earth City, but it will become much stricter. What Daifuni has to do is to manage the regular personnel well. After all, the Earth City today is no more like a superforce than before. When the Earth Army outside quickly swept across the entire Golden Desert, Earth City's reputation also changed. It had to sweep across the entire Golden Desert. There are so many people joining. No one knows that Daifuni brings a little chaos and a sense of hierarchy to Earth City. That's what she wants to do. Even her idea, Jia Yan didn't notice much. In other words, even if he noticed it, he didn't care at all. Just as the gravitational wave instruments and equipment that Jia Yan was paying attention to were quickly assembled and constructed. The other department ordered by Daphne also started moving quickly. They entered some big cities, some large commercial spaceports, and large military spaceports, and there were some mysterious figures floating around. However, the huge changes in the Earth City and the strange war in the Golden Desert have become insignificant under the recent more undercurrents of the Gray-Yellow Star. There are signs of chaos in the Gray-Yellow Star. When Asta the gunslinger appeared on the Gray Star, a diplomatic spat broke out between the two warring countries. This kind of war of words escalated, even to the point of threatening each other. After that, the small-scale wars started to take on a fiery flavor. Twice. After the first encounter between the commander of the biochemical empire and the Asta gunslinger, they actually fought 2 more times despite being traumatized, and both times, they fought against each other in regular wars. In the 2 battles, the biochemical empire's commander Lord Ula was at a disadvantage, but the Asta gunslinger did not take advantage. The battle between the 2 always revolves around some small things. Because the commanders have started fighting, the soldiers below have a huge battle process. The war between the 2 empires has suddenly entered a moment full of gunpowder. Originally, the wars in the Gray-Yellow Star were just conventional wars for the warring countries. It can be said that for them, there was already a well-established rule, that is, the losing side would have to give up a certain amount. Benefit approach. But in these few small wars, the biochemical empire, which had lost a lot, actually refused to give up any interests. The biochemical empire's unethical approach suddenly made the people of Asta extremely angry. But under such a war, another huge force in the Gray and Yellow Star intervened. Zerg. This is a mysterious empire, or a mysterious superpower. As early as 300 years ago, the biochemical empire had not yet appeared. Their ancestors, or the elders of the biochemical empire who still exist today, were just enslaved biochemical people or biochemical beasts in various civilizations. That's all. But one day, this self-proclaimed Zerg suddenly appeared in the star field. With the emergence of the Zerg, the shocking changes 300 years ago began to occur. The huge empire of the biochemical empire, with its support, was formed like the rising sun at an incredible speed. Then, under the gaze of all civilizations, it seized the vast territory of the starry sky. And even now, even though the Zerg have appeared in this starry sky for nearly 300 years, all alien civilizations only know that the Zerg has always been mysterious and can only follow the biochemical empire as its assistant and allies, constantly conquering countless territories in the starry sky. In addition to this, these civilizations do not have any information about the Zerg. Even for these beings whose combat power is as terrifying as the soldiers of the biochemical empire, where the base camp is and where they emerged from is an unsolved mystery. Because of the mystery of the Zerg, when the biochemical empire faced several life and death crises, the Zerg was a huge danger factor considered by all the interstellar civilizations that besieged the biochemical empire. Facts have also proved that this terrifying race can always appear in the presence of allies. In times of difficulty, it looks like a terrifying beast showing its ferocious fangs, completely defeating interstellar civilizations one by one. So for the alliance between the biochemical empire and the Zerg, all alien civilizations, although they deal with the biochemical empire most of the time, what they are more afraid of is that they have almost no communication and never interact with alien civilizations. Communicating Zerg. But this time, without the biochemical empire's request to fight, the Zerg actually intervened. Just as the Third Biochemical Empire's Lord Ula and Asta Gunslinger were having a terrifying battle, countless Zerg warriors suddenly appeared in the Zerg camp near the Biochemical Empire. They joined the Biochemical Empire, and the most powerful Zerg commander, the moth-like life form with a body of 30 meters in length, even spread its wings, joined Master Ula and Asta Gun God's warring circle. This battle was earth-shattering. The Zerg's combat power even surpassed that of the biochemical empire. It was fully demonstrated. The Asta Empire returned from the battle with a great defeat. The Asta Gunslinger was severely injured and had to cease all activities. All the troops forced to the biochemical empire's barracks completely retreated from the sky, leaving only countless Astos on the ground. Battleship remains. The gray-yellow star vibrates. The entire gray star, even in the safe big cities, is in panic. All life forms are worried about whether the rare war that the Zerg will take action will make the gray star, which has already stabilized and established a unique system, star. There is turmoil again. Some rich people even began to secretly transfer their property, hoping to escape from the quagmire of war when changes occur. War, even among interstellar civilizations, is a terrifying term that one cannot bear to talk about. However, at this time, the entire gray-yellow star was still on the surface, and there was not much change. Even the surging undercurrents did not cause any big changes to this huge gray-yellow planet. After all, for a warring planet, changes are common. Either today you were killed by a team leader, and you were condemned by the TV media every day, or he dropped a super large bomb yesterday, which was condemned by all parties. In short, he is not a very sensitive person and is not very interested in these news. Instead, it was some tidbits of news that made people in some cities very interesting. That is, in city number 5, because of the nearby Golden Desert where most of the Grey Star's forces are spread, a sweeping force appeared. In the slums and outside the city, more refugees gradually appeared, which caused constant reports in the media. And even the attention gradually increased. Within the scope of city number 5, it almost exceeded the reports of the war situation of Grey Star itself. After all, Jin Mo is the area closest to city number 5. Many people in the city even talk to Jin Mo an unclear relationship. What happened in Jin Mo made many big figures on Planet 5 very angry. Their interests are there, how could they watch such huge changes happening there? The team that was originally going to Jin Mo finally got entangled and quickly approached Jin Mo. This city management team, which does not belong to either warring country, only possesses some obsolete aircraft. Their strength may be much stronger than those of the general Golden Desert forces, but compared with those old secret forces, they are much weaker. There was a huge gap, but they still took action. Just think about it, they are regular troops arranged by the warring countries. During the past battles, even if the big forces in private were stronger than them, who would not lower their heads? These security teams believed that this time was no exception, so they controlled the aircraft one by one and flew towards the Golden Desert. They were all imagining how much supplies the Earth City would turn over, allowing them to expand their operations again. Fanny Pack. City number 5 sent an aircraft over. When Daphne heard this report from her subordinates, she smiled indifferently. The enemies she had been imagining were all warring countries. As for the cities on the gray and yellow stars, forget it, Daphne didn't think they were her real opponents from the beginning. Just a clown. Give me Rongta, the 12 strong men from the original Golden Desert, 16 Sir Lugo, and 19 Sir Bernard. The 3 of them can go over and intercept. It doesn't matter if we kill them all. Daphne said softly. Those aircraft coming from big cities may be a catastrophe to the general Golden Desert forces, but when their strength reaches the scale of Earth City, the so-called power of the other party is already something without the slightest threat. Got it? You must know that the big Mosquito that lost a lot of energy in the past was capable of destroying a sheriff's flying team. At that time, his combat effectiveness was probably ranked around 20 at most in the Golden Desert. Now it is enough to send 36 strong men who have taken refuge in Earth City. Besides, even if these guys are defeated, Earth City still has plenty of foundations, and no matter what, it is impossible for them to attack Earth City. So after the news was dealt with, Daphne turned her thoughts away and stopped paying attention. In fact, there are not many materials needed for the research room. After all, when Oro was on Earth, he could rely on primitive accumulation to build a research room. Now that the Earth City is so large, if you want to copy a similar research room, it's not a problem. She looked at the virtual light screen in front of her, her long eyelashes trembling. The recent situation in Gray and Yellow Star is extremely beneficial to us. If it were not for the current situation, our actions might attract more attention than now. But this situation cannot last long. I estimated before that it would take 20 days, now it seems that it is a bit taken for granted. 15 days at most. This is only possible if the public pays attention to the warring countries. If Earth City continues to attract attention, it may not take 15 days before the entire Grey Star will pay attention. So what we have to do now is to race against time. Use everything that can be used. Use any means, even if it is the method of killing chickens and extracting eggs that the big Mosquito has used before, we can try it again. Daphne bit her red lips and kept thinking. Big Mosquito is only concerned about the progress of the research laboratory. He just wants to return to Earth, but he is not paying attention to the future, but I can't do this. He did it randomly in Earth City, but how can such an opportunity be possible in the future? I must continue to control this power. Even for the sake of the Earth, he will definitely agree with me in the future. There was a hint of determination in her eyes. Suddenly, in the light screen, a 10-day plan gradually took shape. The terms and clauses were very clear, and even the manpower dispatched to do certain things had a clear division of labor. When the 10-day plan appeared, Rao, a resourceful and enchanting woman, felt a sense of exhaustion, but she still used her own strength to urgently summon all the Earth City senior officials. Then what is Daphne doing again? Jia Yan, who was crawling in the meeting hall, felt confused when he heard the constant turmoil in the Earth City. But he didn't pay much attention to it. He was already relieved about Daphne at this time. He knew that Daphne would come over and report to him what he was doing. Jia Yan has a clear understanding of his own abilities. As a person with far less life experience than Daphne, he may have abilities similar to Daphne in the future, but definitely not now. 360 Search Meow by GE, Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky updates quickly. So he was happy to be the hands-off shopkeeper. Of course, everything Dafuni did would always be reported to him by Aluz, Lulu, and several other life forms that Dafuni didn't know about. After all, he can still take the most basic precautions. This guy, it can be seen that she attaches great importance to Earth City. I really don't understand. If she returns to Earth, what significance does this alien force have to us? Does she still think that even if she returns to Earth in the future, can we continue to develop in the starry sky? Jia Yan is aware of everything Dafuni has done, and he is even aware of her efforts to preserve the power of Earth City. However, he does not agree with this understanding, because in Jia Yan's view, returning to Earth they will never have anything to do with this gray-yellow star. Wouldn't it be thankless to develop such a force with so much effort? Never mind her. As long as the matter does not affect the establishment of the Institute, time waits for no one. Big Mosquito looked up at the transparent glass hanging high above his head in the assembly hall, with the bright sun shining brightly outside. However, his eyes did not seem to stop on it, he just looked at the blue sky with a hint of yellow. He could vaguely see through everything in the distance, hidden behind the starry sky, murderous intentions coming towards him overwhelmingly.